Are you a brewhead? I'm a brewhead. Are you a brewhead? I'm a brewhead. Y'all are brewheads? Yeah, we brewheads. So pour a glass of craft beer, we can do this. Yeah.
What's good, y'all? This is Cee, certified brewhead.
And I am Nathan from Nathan Does Beer.
And welcome to episode 175 of Beer and Other Shit, the podcast Adjunct series. Nate, we're in your backyard this evening, so.
Yes, we certainly are. And I'm excited for it.
Oh, mate, right there with you. So this is a gentleman who we're huge fans of and his wares. We had him on the pod at least twice, maybe three times. The last time I just double checked was back in March 2021. So it's been much
more than 3 years, which is way too long.
Particularly for this guy, because once again, like I said, like I feel like when I first, and I always like to laugh about it, but when I first met him and drank his stuff, I was in a different space. I wasn't ready for his level of fire. I was looking for something different, and now this is what I'm looking for. This is what I'm all about. So it's very cool. Lots to catch up on. If you know craft beer in Ontario or in Canada, you would be familiar. This gentleman and his beers have been talked about extremely highly by some of the most celebrated people in the scene, for sure.
Yep. And by us too. Like they've been on our top 10 list every year since we've been doing it.
They ain't budging. They ain't budging at all.
Yep.
So let's get this going, guys. Please welcome Matt Tweedy from Tooth and Nail in the building.
Hey, everybody. You're too kind.
No, fantastic to have you back on. I always laugh at that because we cut clips from that other podcast and stuff. I just remember coming there in 2017 and meeting you, and it was so funny to sort of think back. I mean, what's that, 7 and a bit years ago? And I think it was May 2017. BAOS, yeah.
I think we were in May or 2016 or 2017.
2017. Yeah, I remember it was the first
7 years ago.
Crazy, eh? Yeah, it was just like it's been really cool to sort of watch you. I mean, I feel like you've just gone kept making things better and better and better, but I feel like you could probably, I don't know if you would be too humble to say it, but I imagine that the quality of the products was basically kind of where it's at now back then, to some degree at least.
I mean, yes. Yeah, I think that the beers were of good quality at that time. It's it's always a head game when you're constantly trying to improve upon what you've got, and I think that through the years, what I've seen is there's peaks and valleys, right? Like you can take one product and hammer on it as hard as you can, and every year you get new malt, you get new, like, hops every year change, so you got to get back on your game and figure out the new hop here and all these things. So, if you take any single one of our beers that we've got around, I think there's been ebbs and flows of quality, but I think that the mentality behind them has been exactly the same as since day one. And it's my job to figure out the flaws, but if the customers still like it, then hopefully that's good.
Hell yeah, love it. Matty, let's get a beer going so we can start yapping. So we're going to kick off with this glorious little gem, Grace and Gratitude, right there, a whole cone Saaz lager, which is very cool. Tell us about this one, man.
Yeah, this beer's one of the ones that the brewers love the most. Cheers, guys. It's been a really long time, by the way.
It really has.
Sure.
Cheers, legend.
Cheers.
And thanks for having me.
Honor and a pleasure.
Being here.
So Grace and Gratitude, it's got, the name of it is really based on a whole trip that we did. We were, some friends and I were part of the first North American mission to the Czech Republic, supported by the Czech embassy, to go and understand and appreciate Czech beer culture. And so we went over there, and it was like a 7 or 8 day crazy trip. I mean, on the bus in the morning at 8 a.m. and getting off the bus at 11 p.m. and visiting thousands of breweries and all the barley fields and hop fields and maltsters and hop growers and brew pubs and massive breweries and everything you can think of. And when we came back from that trip, I knew that I wanted to produce a Czech style lager. At that time, you know, we'd been producing Vim and Vigor for a couple of years. And, but I didn't want to produce a, you know, Pilsner or Kel.
Gotcha.
And I kind of took all the different beers that we had because they're, even though you're talking about, you know, Svetli Lazak and that kind of Czech lager idea, there is actually quite a bit of variance between all of them. And so when we came back, I kind of looked at it and said, well, you know, Czechvar or Budvar for what you have it, was always kind of that underappreciated beer that we always had at the LCBO. And when we went to that brewery, they gave us a glass of beer the second we walked in. And to this day, that might be the best glass of beer I've ever had in my life. It is in the top 3 most memorable experiences I've ever had with beer in my life.
Wow.
And so when I came back, I was very inspired by that freshness, by that taste. And at that time, I was really hoping to start brewing with whole cone hops because nobody was doing it. And I thought, well, maybe this is a way to differentiate ourselves. Maybe this is a way to discover some new flavors, some new layered textures and whatever. And so anyways, long story short, in the middle of COVID lockdown, I was in the back of my brew pub with 2 Czech ambassadors and Bim on a FaceTime call with the U.S. ambassador for agriculture to the Czech Republic. And I said, can you get me some whole cone hops? And he said, sure. When do you want them? And so within a month and a half or so, we got the end of the Budvar processing of Czech Saaz hops.
Wow.
And Budvar's hops, and Bim and I split them, and I started working on this beer.
Wow. And
so
that was 2021.
That would have been, so we were, oh my gosh, I don't even remember years anymore. That whole 4-year period seems to be erased. That would have been the winter of 21.
Gotcha.
I think. Yeah.
Okay.
And so anyways, you know, we just decided to figure out how to use these hops in our brew house and did a 100% Saaz whole cone hop lager. And that's what this is.
It's spectacular. And this is 4.5%. And this particular one, is it like you said, you didn't want to sort of replicate, you want to do it a bit differently. Is it would it be considered like a Czech style pale lager if you would I mean, it
would be. I mean, it's all Czech ingredients.
Okay.
The only thing that we're really lacking is the ability to do any kind of step mash or decoction mash.
Okay.
Which, you know, if I had my way, I would do this beer with that ability. But as we don't have that equipment, you know, we kind of just try to figure out how to do our best with replicating those malt flavors, which you're never going to replicate them. You can get pretty close, but the texture, especially, you know, without a decoction mash on the brewing side, you can get close in flavor, but you're never going to get the texture. You're never going to get the foam stability. You're never going to get these things. But that's kind of also what makes this beer our own in a way, you know?
Gotcha. And the whole cone side of things, which I love the whole concept of that. That's super cool. I know Nate is like moist for the end of year fresh harvest beers and stuff. So like I imagine this is totally Nate's vibe too. But what would be some of the characteristics that we're getting in this beer? Because we should talk about the beer itself too. Do you want to maybe talk us through some sort of tasting notes? Oh, that we also have here in our tooth and nail envelope, which I feel like it's the Oscars or something. Oh, and it's right up front. Look at that.
There it is.
So maybe talk us through.
The beers might be in order. I have no idea. So
let's I'm not even going to take it off. We're going to see how we go. So this one, would you like to maybe talk us through some of the tasting notes and what actual, you know, aromas and flavors we're going to be getting from those whole cones?
Yeah, well, I mean, the hop. So this is a beer that we really designed for balance. So you're not getting there's no overdoing it on any of the sides. So in order to try and replicate, you know, a triple decoction mash, we've taken some Bohemian Pilsner malt, and then we've added just a little bit of Bohemian Vienna malt and some Cara Bohemian malt. And we've really just tried to build the malt foundation from grains that you would usually get from just a pale malt, and then going through all the cooking processes that you would get on a decoction mash.
Gotcha.
So really, I'm going by my own palate on that, but I've got enough experience tasting these beers that I think we're pretty close. Without getting the texture from the decoction mash that you can get if you have that equipment and that availability, the whole cone hops actually lend a little bit of an oiliness, a little bit of a leafiness, and a little bit of a tannin to the flavor of them. So that gives the beer a little bit of dryness. You're running at about 25 to 28 IBUs on this. So it's brewed for balance. It's not, Urkel's up at 36, 38 IBUs. So we're not going for that kind of thing. We're going for more of a high drinkability. The Saaz aroma is really spectacular and very purposeful and definite in this beer. However, we didn't dry hop it. We didn't load the whirlpool with hops. We were really just trying to get some of those really kind of light, nice, kind of spicy and citrusy aromas and flavors out of the hops. Essentially, this beer is almost like brewing a German Helles, but on the Czech side of things.
Okay.
So it's like that high drinkability, nothing over the top, everything trying to be in perfect balance. And then, the fermentation is like the goal is clean as fuck. Just nothing lurking in there. Just really make sure that is crisp. The flavors come out. You can taste them all. You can taste the hops, nothing else in between.
I love that. I think that's almost like a calling card of your Crispies, man. Like they're just so exquisite. Is probably the best word. It's like like Vim, which we'll get to later as well. It's got to be one of the best beers in the country, hands down, in all categories. Like it's so, and this is a beautiful beer. I've had this a bunch lately as well. Thankfully, it's now you and I were chatting, and my local now convinced him to start stocking your shit. Nate's been getting stuff. It's the best, dude. I'm just going in there and getting my usual haze or whatever. I'm like, and give me a bunch of tooth. It's so dope for me who didn't have easy access. I would have to be like, hey Nate, if you're going down, can you grab me some? So it's very cool that it's more available. So I've been drinking it more, and just it's like I feel like your stuff, like all the way you described it, is gorgeous. And this is the type of beer that I want to have every drinking session. It's for exactly what you're saying. It's got all the super drinkability. If you want to sit here and think about it, it's got all the complexities that you would want in a perfectly executed version of the style. But if you don't want to think about it, you just pour that bad boy up and crush it and enjoy it. So it's very
I find that to be a great compliment. To be honest, like everything you just said, like that's the compliment that I would love to hear, because the beers that we try to produce, like I do my best to make beer for drinking, right? Mm-hmm. Like refreshment is a really big part of, what I believe beer to be. Mm-hmm. And if you can have refreshment and drinkability while, if you decide you want to sit there and dissect it, there's plenty to dissect. Like that to me is, that's a great beer. Those are the beers that I'm inspired by in the world, So that's a great compliment. Thank you.
I love that. You're so welcome, dude. It's like I was saying earlier, it's been a very cool journey just for me to sort of start to appreciate all this stuff. And it's really cool because I feel like you were one of the first sort of early in the first 2 years of the pod, that we'd interviewed, and I wasn't ready for your fire. What's there wanting?
Oh, dude, our first interview was the best. You were in here with Scotty. I still remember it. You guys were sitting. I set up some tables in front of the Bright Tank, and you were looking at Scotty going, dude, the fucking IPA is crystal clear. And I was like, what's wrong with that?
And you were just on a collab with Great Lakes. It was a great time. And also just a quick fun.
Oh, that's right. We had just done the happy ale.
And you were like, yeah, we had to do this fucking haze thing. I don't want you were, it was so funny because you were just like so not for it, which in hindsight I completely understand and respect now. At the time I was like, why wouldn't you want to be on this? I didn't get it. And it's not like I didn't appreciate any of the beers, because I think we had Discretion that day, which was just like a really fun beer. I saw there was a single hop pale ale I think we had as well that day, which I came up because it was May, and CBAs were last week, so it came up in my Facebook memories.
That's right.
So I did see it, and it's been cool to go through that. Oh, the funny anecdote was we met the night before at there was an event
268.
Yes, with Sam. And I was talking to Sam. I think you came up to him, or I came out. I saw Sam, and
we were upstairs at 268, and there was a DJ playing.
Yeah, it was like an outdoor venue thing.
Oh, we met there, but then I met you again like really late.
Yes,
at a party. Yeah.
Yes, and
anyways,
also
I
the
don't
CBA.
expect you to
that I was also really sick. I had like the flu, and I was just like pushing.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, it was fucked up. And I also remember because I just met, and then I met Sam. Was like, "Oh, this is Matt." I was like, "Oh, I'm interviewing you tomorrow," because I think we didn't know what each other looked like, and was like, "Oh, cool." So we started talking, whatever. And I remember then, so that was just like random and fun because Sam is the man. And then the night of the CBAs, which I guess was the next night, I didn't because we were pretty new. We didn't really know everybody like that. This was still in the super early days for us. And I remember you were like, I mean, it was very funny. You were like lit, and you were like taking your kind of shirt off. And I was like, I like this guy a lot. He was really fun.
Was I actually?
Yeah. In the you know where the tables were and the thing, and there was like that big row. The tables where everyone sat for the awards. Then there was this fucking long ass table across the whole room that just had beers from all over the country.
I remember that table. I don't remember the shirt coming off.
Yeah, big. Well, you wouldn't have. I don't think you took it completely off.
Very unlike me.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I don't know you like that, but I like this guy a lot. Yeah, that was a good time. But point being that seeing you, seeing the you grow and do all these things over time, and then my palate. I mean, I can only speak for myself, but just growing to not only appreciate it, but fall in love with it in a whole different way. It's very cool. And now I can have these different conversations with you over some stuff that I have a much, much deeper appreciation for now and just want to learn more. Cause cats like you and Bim, we had Bim on recently, and it's just extra fascinating because in comparison to other stuff, like I don't know about you, Nate, but I know jack shit about this stuff in comparison to Haze and whatever, right? Particularly the nuances. So I love hearing about it.
And these are styles that have a lot more nuance to them, and and it just seems like a very specific level of expertise that a select few have the ability to speak to, the way that you and Bim do. So it's a special treat for us in that way.
Yes,
that's kind. Thank you.
Truly. So one thing we did want to speak on, we were just talking about this off air, these gorgeous cards that are a new thing that Tooth and Nail are doing in the brewery. Do you want to speak to this a bit, man, and tell us sort of what the inspiration behind the cards are and, what you're trying to do with it?
Yeah, it's interesting where the inspiration came from. So those cards are part of our new beer menu in the pub. And, I took the pricing and glass sizes and all that stuff off them for you guys so that you could just get an information piece, and then it led us to understand, hey, we have information pieces here that we can pass out and stuff like that. But it actually came about because I was getting so frustrated with our brew pub using QR codes for menus because they were a necessity. And like if I have to put in a timeline, like before COVID hit, we had menus that had beer descriptions on them that I had written that I thought were engaging, and people engaged with them, and they, it was a tangible thing that they could hold and read and all of this. And yet at the same time, we were having a really hard time because every time we change a beer, we're just burning through paper, right? And it's like, we do a really good job, I think, at Tooth and Nail of reducing waste, and it's something that we're really proud of, and I think it's something that we really strongly believe in. We're not perfect, but we definitely do a decent job of it. But with these menus, we're like every week, we're just printing hundreds of sheets of paper that are going into the recycling bin the next week. And we couldn't come up with a way to do beer menus that was working for us. And so when COVID hit and the QR code thing started entering the mainstream, that made sense. I was like, this is amazing. We just solved this problem. And then, as that started to get tired, I was like, well, the problem is that now I'm seeing people come into the pub and they're sitting down with a group of 8 or 10 people, and everyone's just sitting there with their phones in front of their face, and they're scrolling through the menu to figure out what beer they're going to have. And there's no literature about the beer. There's nothing to tell them what the beer is about. we're not able to use our amazing artwork and let people see that. There was no real, to me, it was like a very, I don't know what the word is, almost like a hollow experience where it's like, okay, well, I like pale ales and this says pale ale, so I'm just going to order that. And so I guess it was probably last fall. I was like, well, we should be putting everything in a package for everybody. And so we had looked at doing it on a QR code where you bring it up and then you can scroll through all these cards. And I was like, but that's not solving the problem of people talking to one another and looking at each other in the face and engaging with one another, which is what our brew pub is all about. And so then I was like, okay, well, how can we do these cards? So basically what we did is we made cards for the beers that we do with the write-up about what the beer is about, the alcohol and the pricing and the glass size and all of that. And we do like 60 of each card, and it's on kind of a binder so that when we are done, it's say the beer goes off tap, it just goes into its file and it's always there, but we don't have to continually reprint waste paper, and yet people get something to hold and read and engage with the beer. I like educating people about beer. So it's like one way to do that. And like we only put those on the tables last week and the reception's been unbelievable. So
amazing.
I figured a way to get you guys to, you know, read a little bit beforehand about what we're drinking is a great way to show you that. And you get to see
That's perfect.
amazing illustrations and all that. So that's where that came from.
Yeah, that's dope. And like we were chatting before we hit record, I was just there on Saturday, and thankfully I had some time to to have a couple of beers while I was in the brew pub, and I noticed these just freshly out on the bar there, and and flipping through them, and I'm like, this is really cool. Like you were saying, you know, you've got your fantastic can artwork, and everything in your in the nice red font, and your fantastic descriptions are all laid out on here. It's and it's very cleanly branded, of course, as your stuff always is. It's a really nice addition to to the experience.
Super classy.
And is your intention, because this is almost everything here, actually, I maybe have just answered my own question, but I was going to say, is your intention to, when you have one-offs on there, to have one of these for every beer on tap available? Not just
probably not. So I mean, we can get a little bit into that going forward, but I think that the concept of one-offs for us is coming to not a halt, but we're not going to be doing a lot of that stuff. We are in some ways, but I probably will not be doing stuff like that for those. We've taken a lot of the artwork that we've gotten from all the different beers that we've done over the years, and we're starting to implement them in different ways. Like I'm reintroducing a new food menu. In a week or two, we're going to start opening for lunches, and the new menu that you've got has got this wicked backdrop of Vim and Vigor.
Sick.
Excuse me, with the food in front, you flip it over and there's a backdrop of discretion with all the wines and ciders and non-alcoholic drinks on that. So we have a separate menu that's going out there, and we're starting to work. The Invigorator logo is probably going to go in our beer to go, because it's this, dude on a bicycle and a leopard skin hat, and just trying to have fun with the artwork and incorporate it in ways where we get to brand the space in a very tasteful way and have these images kind of grow beyond the brands themselves. But as far as the menu goes, there'll probably be set brands that we have ready to go for the menu. It's an insane amount of work just to do one card for that many menus. And so until we can pawn that off on someone else, I just keep it in-house, keep it a little bit simple.
Yeah,
I probably didn't explain that very well, but
no, I get it. Yeah, it's a cool concept. It's a nice, like you said, you want to educate people about beer, so it's like you've got this side covered, and then the way you were describing that, being able to repurpose a lot of the work that you've already got and a lot of the branding that you're already known for into other elements of the business, so that it's just across the board. It's all recognizable, and people be fan of it. They'll recognize the guy on the bike. Oh shit, that's a guy from the lake. Stuff like that. Just tying it in. I think it's kind of smart, and it's what's the word? like kind of what you're saying before, like it's like it's not wasteful when you've already paid a designer or whatever to do all this stuff. Use this shit.
Well, I mean, Matthias's work is fucking cool.
Yeah.
And so for us just to put that on a can, it doesn't seem like it's doing it justice, right? Like I've got other ideas about having, we've got all kinds of decks and we have the lineage of the development of the Tooth and Nail brand and the Tooth and Nail logo and the can development, all this stuff, and hand-drawn sketches. And I have the history of the development, like as an actual piece of work. And so I wouldn't mind plastering all of that stuff all over the brew pub with little museum pieces that say, Matthias Palacios Hardy, he's our designer, Invigorator logo, September 2016 or whenever that came out, so that when you walk around, like everyone talks about telling the story of your business, but like I want people to come here and have the story told. I want you to be able to walk to different parts of the pub and just look at it and go, oh wow, check that out, that's when that was developed, or this is the progression of, like, look at that first can, the first can that he drew is like nothing like this one, but you can see the progression of how it came to be. And I mean, we can tell the story within these walls very, very well. And so using all of that artwork that he's done and incorporating it in different things beyond the can, it helps solidify the brand in one sense of the word, but it also helps to deliver that experience and have people walk out of here going, I think I really have a good feeling for what Tooth and Nail is all about.
That's great, man. Do you ever put any of the stuff on merch or anything? Have you ever utilized any of the designs for that?
Yeah, lots of t-shirts.
Sick.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, lots of t-shirts. The hats are tough because if you were to, well, it took us forever to get hats, but if you buy a bunch of hats and you have to get 48, Vim and Vigor hats, and not everybody wants that logo, and you've got to get 5 or 6 different hats. Just the way you purchase things becomes difficult. Gotcha. But with t-shirts, it's easy. I mean, we've had so many t-shirts with the artwork with that image from whatever can as the particular part of that t-shirt, and we're still doing that. So
that's fire.
It's fun driving up the street and seeing someone go down with like a Bravado t-shirt on, and all you see is this, rooster with a glove in its hand, and it's super fun.
It would be cool to see that in the wild. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. In the interest of keeping things moving, do you guys should we jump into the next one?
Yeah, and these beers are so good and so clean that they're just disappearing on me.
Oh, I knew this is going to be a problem tonight. We're crushing. There's not going to be a drop left, mate. Should we? I was going to say we can pick the next one, or should we let the cards pick? No, I'm joking. We're going to
let the cards pick. Yeah, no. Let's do the cards. There you go. I have no idea what order they're in. It's the wrong order, I'll say
we'll fix it. Okay, ready, and probably.
Oh
Vim.
yeah, we should do that.
Should we do that before Vim?
No, let's do Vim.
Oh man!
I mean, you could, but
yeah, but I want to do it properly. I want to do it how you want to do it. The classic.
Yes, indeed. Never fail.
Never fail. Can't go wrong. Easily. I mean, look, honestly, Grace and Greg, the more I have that, the more I'm just like, oh my god, it's really good. I don't think I've had these side by side. So I'm actually really curious to see how this goes. Now, I
think side by side, they generally give a pretty good indication of the difference between, a German Pilsner and a Czech.
Yeah, Czech style one.
Pale lager.
Here's a question as we're pouring these here, and we've talked about this with a couple of other well-known lager breweries in the province. Like we had this conversation with True History, we had this conversation with Bim. Do you have thoughts on the best way to pour lager from a can to get optimal head?
Such a good question.
I've got thoughts on it. First of all, I think my first thought is you should get good head on just a normal pour. That doesn't always work out. Like even my Grace and Gratitude, the foam on that was dissipating pretty quickly. once again, having to do with our, ability to extract the proteins from that malt. I mean, it depends really what you want. You can pour it straight into the glass, half of your can, and let that foam really like build big. And then as it settles, you can top that up and you're going to have a really dense, foamy beer. You're going to expel a lot of the CO2. Mm-hmm. So to me, it doesn't really like, once you get to the point where you know how to pour a beer, it's really up to you to decide how you want it to taste.
Right.
If you want it to be highly effervescent and carbonated and have a lot of that carbonation accentuate the bitterness and the crispness of that beer, I probably wouldn't pour it with a huge foam. But if you want to have a reasonable kind of experience with a beer that's not overly carbonated and get a lot of that foam texture and not burp a lot and really pick out the malt and hop flavors, you may want to build a big foam and allow it to drop and then build it up. So like a double pour. The Guinness pour is marketing. It does work to an extent. You can pour a Guinness pour in one single go, just so you know. Okay. But a double pour will always make the head a little bit more dense.
Okay.
So I want you to pour the beer the way that you want to taste it is really.
Gotcha. Yeah. I didn't know there was a difference in the taste in how you do it. I saw a video, I've seen it before, but like this week, where a dude would poured two beers side by side, one of them angled and one of them like aggressive, and the carbonation, they do their thing where they put paper towel in it and, jerk it around a bit.
Oh yeah, don't listen to that guy.
No, fuck that guy.
I think you're talking about Taffer, what's his name? John Taffer, whatever,
maybe.
The bar guy. Yeah.
I'd seen it before, but this was a different. I think it was a British guy. Maybe it was American. I can't remember. Okay. But either way, I wasn't sure. That's why Nate asked that, because it's something that like we want to get the maximum head and do it the best way possible that the brewers intended it to be. But you've just gone and painted a picture. We can do it.
I mean,
a few ways.
So to me, the one thing that I'm really cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Get that up, yeah. The
one thing that I'm really.
Oh, this is so different, even just off the nose.
So different.
Very lean.
It's
very crisp.
Super crisp. Definitely slightly more on the bitterness side. Total different. Like the malt profile is incredibly different.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry, Matt, I interrupted you.
Please keep going.
No, not at all. No, we got to talk about the beer. So if I have to talk about pouring beer, the one thing that I'm very, very adamant about is that beer needs foam.
Right.
Your beer should arrive to you in a bar. You should pour a beer at home. You need foam. You want a good, thick amount of foam on the top. If you don't have foam, your beer is going to taste like a barley San Pellegrino. Like the foam is such an insane part of the texture and experience of a beer. Like I cannot put enough emphasis on that. So if you have to double, triple pour it to get that, that's great. But foam is so essential. It's go to Oktoberfest. If you get a liter of beer with no foam on it, you're sending it back.
If you ever see any of those like pictures of the servers carrying like the huge trays of steins, they've all got like 2 or 3 inches of foam in them.
It's pretty incredible.
There's that, and then you see these women with like I don't know how like 20 steins in their hands going around. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, that's not a tray. That's like just with their hands holding the handles. It's nuts.
And they use like two rows of them, and there's like 8 in each, and then sometimes there's a little extra one on top or something. Like,
that's it.
And they're just smiling.
Experience.
I'm like, I don't know how they do it. They're jacked. They're very crazy.
They're jacked. B, they're making lots of money, and C,
professionals.
Go till you drop.
Yeah, I love it. So this beer, talk us through the tasty notes, which this is the gorgeous card. Speaking on this one here, so obviously this is a Pilsner. Grace and Gratitude was a lager, like you said, and Czech style pils, of course.
For Grace, this is German style.
I'm sorry, it's German style for this one. Yes.
So what we've done here, I mean, this is one of the first beers we ever brewed, and it was a real passion project of mine. never in a million years did we think that Vim and Vigor was going to be the thing that ran away with the baton. It was, I had worked at King Brewery for years producing lagers, and we were producing King Pilsner, and I enjoyed it. It was a Czech style Pilsner, had lots of bitterness, lots of hop flavor, but I knew that I leaned more towards the German side of things, and I kind of took what I had learned there and then made this recipe. And it was the fourth beer we brewed here, maybe. We brewed like 6 beers in a month to get open, and this was one of them. And it's the third or fourth beer to be released because you got to lager it for so long. And it came out exactly as I had hoped. Like the first brew was exactly what I was hoping to do. And it was really an interesting time, right? It's 2015. I mean, there's to put out a Pilsner, I was like, yeah, some people are going to come in and like it because they're old and they want to, they're from Europe and they want to find their old beer. And it took off like fast. And so it's a real, like I said, a passion project. It's a labor of love. We, this is like that child that you love to death, but doesn't behave all the time. And you got to try and discipline it, and it kind of wants to go its own way. So this beer is always a struggle for us to try to keep in line, but it's fantastic. It's the beer I drink the most. It hits all the right buttons. It's bitter, it's crisp. You've got this cracker like malt component. It's 100% Pilsner malt, so there's nothing else going on in there. A little cracker, a little hay, a little bit of kind of breadiness to it, and then the hops are enough that you get the bitterness in the back of the throat, you get a little bit in your cheeks, you get a little bit in the front of your gums, and usually it's really got a nice hoppy aroma. I used to tell people all this, and they were like, well, it doesn't smell like passion fruit and grapefruit. I was like, well, different hops have different aromas, right? So it's got a real nice hop attack on the aroma. That what we're drinking right now, the aromas are not quite where I'd like them to be, if I have to be honest. Okay. We started using about 50% whole cone hops in this beer for a while, and that was working spectacularly for a while. But whole cone hops tend to deteriorate a little bit faster than pellets. And so we're at the point now where we're getting to the tail end of these whole cones, and we're starting to watch those aromas kind of dissipate a little bit. So actually in the brews we just did, we chucked in some pellets to try and augment it back up. But I'm not disappointed with it. It's just usually it has a little bit more of a hop attack on the nose. But otherwise clean and crisp, and just like, to me, the drying bitterness in the finish is just like every time I take a sip, and I understand it's my own beer and but I love it. It's, you have that sip and the bitterness hits, and then it just kind of, your mouth dries out and you start thinking about that bitterness, and you're like, I got to have another sip just to figure that out. Like, what is that? Like, why is it so pleasant in that way? So I think that's the real magic of this beer.
I mean, you sort of, that's, what a wicked description. You're a magician with the words on this, bro. We may have
great.
I love it.
I was like, I'm stumbling through this.
No, you're killing it. Don't worry.
Oh man, that was poetry.
Truly.
Good.
How we may have talked about this in the past, but I have we're drinking for fucking hours. I always forget shit. How did this beer take off? Like, was it just word of mouth? Was there like sort of someone reviewed it, or is it,
That was a combination of a bunch of those things. So actually, great story. Jordan St. John, who wrote the Ontario Craft Beer Guide with Robin LeBlanc in I don't know when it was released. He was writing it in 2015, and then they did a second edition in 2016 or 17, and I can't remember the dates exactly.
Okay.
So I knew that these guys were writing this Ontario Craft Beer Guide, and we opened on September 16th, 2015. And if I remember right, it was like a Tuesday or Wednesday. I can't remember.
September 15th?
And then, September 16th, 2015. Anyways, it doesn't matter what day it is. The Saturday after that, there's
It's a Wednesday,
the
from memory.
Wednesday. So the first ever Brew Donkey tour that we hosted.
Right.
So at that time, I was like, if someone wants to do a tour, sure. I don't know what I'm going to show them, but we just opened, and this is going to be awesome. So we bring a Brew Donkey tour in, and I look over, and there's Jordan St. John in the corner, who I guess had just hitched a ride with the Brew Donkey tour to go review all these breweries. So he came to review Tooth and Nail on its 4th day open or 5th day open or something like that for the Ontario Craft Beer Guide. And I'm sitting there going like, this is not what I'm looking for. You know what? Actually, I'm wrong. I think it was the week after that. I think we were like 13 days or 10 days open or something.
But very young.
Still pretty fresh.
Very, like, it
not
was
even
within
2
days.
weeks. Not even 2
And
weeks.
so I had a friend come in who was chatting with me at the bar, and Jordan called me over. He said, can I take some of your time? I said, no problem. So he had done the Brew Donkey. He came here with Brew Donkey, listened to my spiel, and then he went to the bar and started doing samplers. And he called me over and he said, I'm really impressed with the beer here. Everything here is spectacularly fermented, but I heard that you have a Pilsner. And I'm sitting there going like, we didn't know each other. So I was like, well, I knew who he was, and he knew who I was and all this stuff. But it was like, oh, okay, I don't know where you got that information, but I do have a Pilsner. It's in the tank, and it's probably 2 weeks away from being done. He goes, can I try it? He goes, sure. And then I brought him a sample of that Pilsner, and then he didn't say a word, and he left. And then I went to the Ontario Craft Brewers. It was a week before I was going to the Ontario Craft Brewers Conference, and I got a call from Stephen Beaumont saying, I heard that you've brewed a Pilsner and it's out of this world. Can you bring me some samples? And I said, sure. And we had just canned it that week. So there's no label. It was like all the labels were generated on our computer, little Avery labels or whatever. And I brought him that. And then a week later, there was an article that came out saying Ontario's best Pilsner has finally arrived.
Wow.
And this is our first batch, the first Pilsner and whatever. So that was pretty amazing. And I didn't really think it was going to go anywhere. And then it went somewhere. And then I remember we had sent some Vim and Vigor to Toronto in February that year to Bar Hop. And one of the bloggers had just said, I can't believe I'm running to Bar Hop to try a freaking lager or something like this. And anyway, so that it got off the ground that way.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So then the word
it was actually like our 3rd or 4th best selling beer at the brew pub for like 2 or 3 years.
Oh, okay. So other things,
and now it's
number one.
And even in the stretch from 2015 to 18.
Yeah.
Which is, are you saying that, Nate, because of the trends that were happening at the time?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Which is when we met, because I was, balls deep in Hazeland. So that's really interesting.
How's that feel?
Oh man, it's still, look, I'm definitely like, the tip is still in, but god damn it, I am right in this crispy world. It's truly changed my life though, to be honest. Like it's been a cool journey to come back to it and appreciate all this stuff after you start off drinking all of this stuff and you're like, yeah, there's a million of them, they're all the same, cool. Then you want to just go explore. Once you've done all your exploring, yeah. And it's been very cool. So that to say, so that's very cool. Thank you for sharing that story. Have you noticed is everybody creaming over Vim, or is it like, are you getting because I know that the Haze boys and girls are also, very much into Crispies as sort of typically as a part of it. It's usually like, high level Crispies and Haze and pastry stouts and smoothie sours and things like that. Is like everyone digging it, or, have you seen it across the board, whether it's old dudes from Europe, whether it's, purist beer nerds, whether it's like the Haze people come in because they want to try this amazing Pilsner, and maybe just the average person who just is thirsty? Like, does it cross all boundaries in that way?
Yeah, I think it does. I mean, if you look at Pilsner as a style over the course of history, it has transcended all boundaries, right? you've got this beer that is relatively young in the history of beer production. You know, you're talking about 1842 for the first golden Pilsner, technically, from Urquell. And so what are we, that's like, you know, 160, 180 years, or I'm not doing the math on that one.
180. Right, yeah.
Right. So you're in that range, which in the history of beer is relatively new. But the real kicker of that is that, you know, 1900s, 1920s, that's, you know, especially 1940s to 1960s, like that's when it really took over, and it took over the whole world. I mean, it got to the point where Belgians didn't know what to do about it, so they started producing Belgian golden ale, things like Duvel, right, to try and compete with Pilsner, because Pilsner was just demolishing everything. So for us here, it's been interesting because the people who were very much into hazies, pastry stouts. So to give you some context, we've had a lot of compliments being over the years, and so many being like, I don't like lagers and I don't like Pilsners, which is kind of a weird term anyways. But I like this one. And so to me, that's a huge compliment as well, right? It's like, this isn't in your wheelhouse, but you like it and you're going to order another one. If someone orders a second beer, that's the best compliment you can get. But you know, we've got elderly couples that come in and drink Vim and Vigor. We've got young kids that come in and drink Vim and Vigor. We've got everybody under the wheelhouse enjoys it. So it's kind of potentially that it's not just Vim and Vigor itself as a brand. It's that style of beer is clearly enjoyed by many, you know, throughout history, throughout the world. So I'm just grateful that our version of that is complex enough and refreshing enough to give people a reason to get another pint.
Love that. Do people still say, "Oh, I heard you guys do a sick Pilsner"? Like, is that, you know, 9 years later? Do people?
Yeah, it still happens. Yeah, I love that. Right, like that just means it's getting out to
even to this day. Yeah. That just reminded me, one of the coolest things I think that you did was, I don't know if you did it more than once. I've definitely had at least one version, but you do an anniversary version of Vim. Was that just one time, or was that a couple times?
We've done it a couple of times. I mean, our anniversary beers are often like, oh my God, what are we going to do? The anniversary is coming up, you know. I think we did a 5th anniversary version.
Yes, I think that's the one he's thinking of. So
that one was unfiltered and dry hopped. And then we did a 7th anniversary that was unfiltered and dry hopped, but it was 100% whole cones when I first started getting these whole cones from a farm in Germany. We decided to do a 100% whole cone version that was dry hopped and unfiltered. And I actually took that to the farm in Germany for them to taste. And yeah, that was one of the standout experiences of my career. Yeah.
That's dope.
Yeah. I gave it to like the first or the second or third generation, you know, this 75-year-old German man who had been growing these hops his whole life, and watching him drink this beer and looking at me going, I can taste my hops in this.
Wow.
That's
it was unbelievable.
That's quite a story. Like, I can't even imagine how what that must have felt like.
Yeah, it was a moment for sure. Yeah.
That's dope, man. Yeah, that full circle kind of thing, right? That it's even cooler because you're impressing the Europeans with this North American take on their style.
Well, and it was that one was a big beer. I mean, it was an IPA kind of leaning Pilsner, right?
Meaning, what do you mean by that?
Excellent.
Like, because of the
just like because the hops were really, really expressive.
Gotcha.
And with the dry hopping, and then all the saturation from the oils of the whole leaves, and just like the bitterness, and it was just the full experience, right?
Yeah,
very,
totally.
Very cool. Yeah.
That's awesome. Would you? And you don't have to answer this because it's just me being cheeky. But are you consider, because it's May now, September's 4 months away, about to be June in a couple of days. Are you considering doing a little special Vim thing for September?
Well, you could convince me. I haven't thought about it at all, to be honest. I can be convinced to do all kinds of things right now. We've really been just focusing on a lot of, like, I don't really want to bring it up too much, but the post-COVID thing has been challenging, and we're finally starting to hit our stride right now. So it's just kind of like staying positive and staying on top of things, and like these new menus and opening for lunch and adding more food and just trying to like get people excited about what we do again as our primary focus. And so I haven't thought, I'm not thinking much past like halfway through July at the moment, but
Understood.
I would love to do an anniversary Vim. I wish we could do it every year, but the thing about doing it every year is reinventing what you're doing with a flagship beer. So that involves some time and some thought, and we'll get there. But yeah, you want me to do one? I'll do one.
Matt.
Definitely we're doing one for the 10th.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, definitely for the 10th. I would say as far as
do it for the label alone. But...
Yeah, the label.
Oh yeah,
it'd be super fire.
Well, yeah, because there's gonna there's gonna be some version of that skull with like with an X behind it, or like
that's
or
right.
Like,
I can't wait to see. I mean, I can see it in my head right now.
That'd be fun.
Yeah, I can picture it too.
I would argue that doing a special version of Vim every year, it's essentially the beer that kind of put the brewery on the map, as sort of you've discussed. Like, even if it's sort of, it doesn't have to be revolutionary, because people keep coming back for this beer because of the consistency and the sort of, they want the same thing, right? But if you can put a slight twist on it, whether it's just the 2024 unfiltered dry hopped or whatever it was that you did, like, if you just did that every year, it's going to be a different batch of hops, so it's going to taste different. You know what I'm saying?
So I really wish we could. So, and it's interesting because I know, Nate, that you are a big fan of hop hugs.
Yep.
I wish the hop harvest happened in like end of June, start of July, and then I could get the freshest whole cone, Vim hops for September. But actually, no, it would have to. You know what? Doing an Aussie version might work out now that I think about it. Aussie or New Zealand would be the right timing for hop harvest, but yeah, no, you make a good point. Or we could just make little tweaks to the dry hop. Like we used to brew Vim and Vigor with Saphir hops on the back end, and we pulled that out after a while because probably I don't really remember, but probably because that particular crop year, the Saphir, wasn't as good as it was before, and we haven't put them back in. But to maybe reintroduce those ideas and give it, just try another hop on the back end to kind of steer the flavor. Yeah, that's a great idea.
Totally. Like, say, and this might be a little ridiculous, but like you mentioned the Kiwi or the Aussie hops. I think the Kiwi hops are pretty clearly superior at this point. I have to admit, begrudgingly. But like, would that be too far? Like, say if you like, I don't know if there's like I mean, even New Zealand Cascade is bright and fruity and stuff. So most of those hops, from what I understand, are kind of more along those lines. Would that be too far outside of the brand to go and take?
No, I don't think so.
Train and fucking dry hop it or something?
No, I don't think so. But you'd have to be a little bit careful of what hop you're using, right? Like some are aggressive, some are super fine.
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't think that would be out of the realm at all. It's just, for me, I'm very, very calculated in what I'm going to accept. And so I would have to do a lot of research and go through a lot of blogs, go through a lot of anecdotal evidence of, say I brewed Vim and Vigor and I wanted to dry hop it with Nelson, for example.
Yep.
I would want to know what Nelson does at 10 degrees Celsius. What does Nelson do at 12? What does it do at 14, 16? And there are certain oils and hops that don't dissolve well in finished beer. So then if they don't dissolve well in finished beer, what you're left with is the plant material. And so then you get this grassiness instead of the actual oiliness that you get from the hops that can give all the fruit and all of the nice nuances that you want. And so all of a sudden you put this hop that you fucking love in on a colder dry hop, and now it just tastes like you just mowed the grass, and you've just totally mowed the grass over that great beer that existed before. So it would just involve, you know, some of those considerations, but for sure New Zealand's got some incredible hops that you could put in a Pilsner that would steer it in a lovely direction. The other thing is that if you're going to go ahead and dry hop a lager, and I'm not a huge fan of dry hopping lagers, or I shouldn't say that. I think it's a lot trickier than people give it credit for. Temperature and volumes really, really matter. And I think if you're dry hopping any lager, you have to be very, very light-handed in the dry hop, because a little goes a long way. And when you're dry hopping at certain temperatures, it can either pull out a lot of grassy flavors, or like I said, it can actually just express, you know, what you get in a rub, or some of those flavors that you know the hop to taste like. But lagers are delicate, and dry hopping a lager is even more delicate. And I've got some experience with it. I tend to choose not to do that more often than I choose to do it. We do a beer called Lupo Solitario, which is our Italian style Pilsner, but it's single hopped.
Yes.
And we've learned so much through that beer that it's, you know, we've learned what works and what doesn't with the hops that we've used. And so I'd probably choose one of those that did work.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point.
What ones have you found have worked particularly well so far?
Oh, you're asking me a big question. What did we really love? There were a couple of hops that came out recently from Germany, Aurum and Diamant. Both of those were great.
Yes, I had that one. That was great.
Yeah, Triskel from France was really good on the dry hop. Vista, which most people didn't use in lagers, a relatively new hop from the US, a couple of years, 3-4 years old, something like that. Vista was unreal. The last Lupo we did was Allura, and the next beer we're going to taste, Exile's got some Allura in it. Allura was really, really cool.
ELORA?
ALORA.
Allura. Okay.
Allura, yeah, sorry. Yeah, I can't think back much further than that on Lupos. I mean, the German noble hops like Herzbrucker and Miedelfruit did not do all that well on dry hop. Okay. Saaz is amazing for dry hopping.
Oh yeah,
Saaz is great. It's a bit of an alien when it comes to the noble hops. You can dry hop a Saaz very well. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, that's
best I can answer that. Yeah.
And just recently you put out Lupo Duplo, your double pills. What can you tell us a bit about that? That seems like a bit of a special one for you.
Yeah, I was looking to get another use out of a yeast strain. We had talked about it for a little bit. Yeah, I don't know. It was a bit of the roll of the dice, and trying to use, like, literally we were looking to get a generation out of a yeast strain that we could then get back into Vim and Vigor. Yeah, I don't know. I can't remember how it came to me. I think actually, you know what? The name of it came to me before the beer. I was like Lupo Duplo, and then I was like double Lupo, and then it just started to kind of unravel. I was like, well, we could do a strong Lupo, and I'm like, but if we're doing a double Lupo, let's do double hops, 2 hops. And what are those hops? And Saaz and Saphir are 2 of my favorites. And I was like trying to work out in my head, could these things jive? You know, can they, is there something that they can kind of put together and come out with something interesting? So yeah, I didn't put a great deal of thought into that beer. Some beers I put months of thought into. That beer I probably put about a week of thought into. I thought the label was more fun than the beer, if I had to be honest.
Yeah, the two-headed.
The
two-headed wolf.
Looks like a dingo.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. That's where that came from. Sometimes with one-offs, I don't know how other people look at them, but you know, I look at this business very differently these days than I did in 2017, 18, 19. You know, this is no longer a hobby, it's a business, and things cost us a lot of money to make. It costs a lot of money to make beer now. A lot more money than it did is what I should say. And so I have business considerations that I have to make in terms of raw material costs and things like that I never really paid attention to before. And so beers like Lupo Duplo or some of the other one-offs, they're like, how can I get some more mileage out of this yeast? Or open up your fridge and I've got these hops that are sitting there that I've purchased, but we never had a use for them. How can I incorporate them into something? And you kind of take those constraints to try and get creative.
Yeah.
That's really cool, man. I like that you're able to sort of play with it like that. It's been cool just while you're talking. I've just been looking through, just like untapped all the different versions. Like there's so many fun like hops that I don't think I've ever seen before elsewhere.
Okay.
Like even things like Sonnet, Aurum, AURUM. Never even
Sonnet was great, and I only ever heard of it that time we brewed with it actually.
Okay, so it's just some random ass up. I mean, you got Triskel is another weird one.
Triskel, yeah. What did I say? So Triskel is the one from France that we really liked.
Yeah,
I think
you did say that.
I think I said a different French hop. Anyways,
That
so
was
sometimes
2019.
I will call up a hop supplier and be like, "What do you got that's
Fun and weird,
you know, either new or no one's buying, or you know, where can I come up with a single hop beer that can teach someone something?" Primarily us as brewers, right? Where can we find something that's a little bit outside of the everyday vernacular, and I can put into a beer and actually discover how it is. So through Solo Mission, which was our single hop pale ale, and Lupo Solitario, or single hop pills, we've made some of those hops have made their way into, you know, our regular lineup because we love them so much.
Okay, I mean, that's are they a lot of the ones possible to get them more often, or is that, like you said, you call up the hops? Like a one time, like say that Aurum you said that was really good, or Sonnet or whatever. Could you just be like, yo, can I get a bunch of this and you're all set?
It depends on the hop. It depends if it's gained popularity and someone wants to bring it in. Sonnet, I don't know why that supplier had that hop, and
or even the
I remember the conversation, and I was like, Sonnet, I've never heard of it. I'll look it up, and I looked it up and got as much information as I could, and I was like, those tasting notes sound like it'd be pretty good in a Pilsner. I'll give it a go. You know, that was back when you could just brew whatever the fuck you wanted, and you knew your tap room was going to be overflowing with people, and they would try it. So there was a lot of liberty. There was a lot of freedom back then to do anything, and
back then,
and learn from it. You know, way back then.
Which is what
5 years ago.
5 years ago. So I thought, 29 pre all the nonsense. Okay,
which feels like an eternity.
Pre nonsense. You know what? I'm going to start using that pre nonsense.
Pre nonsense. Yeah, that's good.
Basically.
That's good.
Next
all
one?
right, fellas. So we've done the two lagers. I think time to move on to the pale ale.
Let's see what the cards say. Wait.
Yeah, I'd like to do Exile.
Well, the cards have spoken. It is Exile.
Perfect.
I placed it there. I rigged it, Matty.
You've done well.
Exile. Nice. I haven't had this one. Excited for this.
Yeah,
this is a brand new
this
beer.
Is brand new, right? Yeah.
You're speaking to my people here, Matty.
Yeah, this is a brand new beer, and there's lots to talk about. I'm very excited about this beer.
Yes, as am I.
Craig's trying to pick his glass.
Yeah, I'm just being like, ooh, which one? All right. We're doing the Exile right there, buddy. You're good. Yes, look at this. So extra pale ale. It's Straya in a can right here. I always
So
find
it's
it
interesting
strange
because when
style.
I brewed and named this beer, I didn't realize that Extra Pale Ale was an Australian style of beer.
Oh, really? Eh?
I had no idea. No.
So every time I went back, I kept seeing it. I'm like, what are you guys talking about? What is this extra pale ale nonsense? And
So I have no idea if this has anything to do with the Australian XBA, but as it becomes a style, I hope I've done it justice, you know.
already color wise, she's looking
Extra pale?
pretty accurate. Extra pale, and she's looking accurate right there.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, it's sort of like this. We did a collab with Sankiem for their anniversary last year, which was an XPA. They were like, "What do you want to do?" And I'm like, "Let's do something Aussie," because that's my little gimmick. I'm like, "Let's do an XPA." And we had to be like, "So what is it?" I'm like, "Fucking good question. Let's figure it out." We had no idea.
So I'd like to know what you guys found out.
So it was.
'Cause I don't know much about it.
It was yeah. I mean, look, I'm not even gonna lie that I know that much more. Let me do this photo. There we go. So basically they ran it a little. They decided to do it at 6%. The ones that are really popular. There's a brewery called Balter, Balter from Queensland that was owned by. I think that they sold, but the dude's name was like Mick Fanning. He's like a massive surfer, like in this, the.
I know that name.
Yeah, you probably know
I
him.
think I've seen him surf, like on TV.
Yes, I feel like if you've watched surfing in the last 10 years, you've probably seen him. And so he owned it. And their XPA, they have this thing in Australia called it's called GABS, Great Australian Beer Spectacular. It's like the biggest like traveling festival, and they have this thing called the Hottest 100. There's so much lore. The Hottest 100, which is based off a radio station called Triple J that has a Hottest 100 where they're
I know Triple J.
Yeah, Triple J. Yeah. So then like the audience votes, and then the number one song, they vote for the biggest song of the year, whatever. They started doing that with beer, the GABS thing. So it's every Australia Day, which is January 26th. They started doing it. So Balter used the XPA won like 5 years in a row. It was just like the biggest beer in Australia. I've only had it one time. I remember it being cool. I think I had it in 2018. It's like a softer pale ale. Like, see this like sort of this soft haze that you've got going on here. This is very and the color. This is very, very accurate to my experience. That's not what we did with Sankiem. The one you can point, the one called Straya. There, you can see it there a little bit. That purple can. They did it they decided to do it at 6%, which was like cool with me. Typically I think they're closer to this. This is 4.8 I saw, but usually around 5-ish is pretty typical. I think it's almost like I wouldn't call it a hybrid American pale ale, New England pale ale, but it sort of kind of is. Softer, a little more tropical, sense. A touch of that.
I think I'd have called it a little bit closer to American pale ale than New England, but yeah.
So I mean, our goal with this one, interesting.
Just a real quick. This is basically it. This is what they did. It's like this. There's some pine. There's a little bit of citrus. It's grassy, a little herbal, whilst also being kind of like not quite juicy, but on the border of juicy, with maybe like a little touch of passion fruit, touch of mango or something in there. But it's subtle. It's there, but it's not like
to your go, buddy.
A juice bar.
And like a bit of grapefruit pith, like bitterness at the end there as well.
Exactly.
This is awesome. I don't even have to talk about this next year.
Oh, this is honestly, this is fucking. I feel like I wish I'd had it, a little closer than 6 years ago. But this is probably the closest one I've had here, because I know we did that collab. I know Great Lakes did an XPA. I know Town did an XPA, and I was really surprised because when I did it, I was like, we're going to be the first one. And just before that one came out in Quebec, I think it was I think Town did theirs. So I was like, okay, so people are rocking these now. It's starting to sort of, get popular enough to be this. Aussies have these weird sort of styles, like, the light beers, like like American light lagers, like 4%, but a light beer in Australia is like 2%. Then they have a thing called a mid strength, which is like 3.5, and then a full strength, which is 5%, big full. So this is all for like the macro ones, right? But that's the terminology. And every time I hear it, I'm like, what are you talking about? So this is kind of like and pale ales. Every time I've gone, pale ales have been quite popular. I feel like the Aussies maybe weather's a touch better than here. Not where I'm from, but you know what I mean. Like they haven't sort of really. It's not like double IPAs are like all the rage type of thing.
They're not looking for the IPA to warm them up like in the middle of February kind of thing.
Not quite. Middle of February would be 30 degrees every day, even
Right.
in Melbourne. But yes, I know what you mean. So it's like this to me from like I have had it. It has been some time, but I would say a relatively educated guess is this is very accurate to what a true Australian XPA, most of the ones over there would be like.
Yeah, great.
Could you speak to a bit of the approach and stuff as well? Finish your thought, but also I'd love to hear about the approach.
No, not at all. Like, no, that's great. I came to my brewer Connor in January, and I was just kind of like, I want to brew a new beer. So it's a bit of a long story, but I'll make it short.
We have all the time.
We are looking at trying to condense our portfolio.
Okay.
And through that process, we didn't have a pale ale.
Okay.
We used to brew a beer called Tenacity. And for a lot of reasons, I decided I did not want to continue with that beer, much to the chagrin of a ton of our guests. I won't get into that, but then we started playing around with a couple of ideas, and we released a couple of one-offs in the last year, like Audacity. Audacity was a take on Tenacity, and it was named because I had the audacity to change Tenacity, and like we have some fun like that. But it still wasn't hitting the right buttons, and so I was frustrated. And in January came in and said, like I can taste the beer in my head, but I don't know how to do it. And so we spent a long time talking about a beer called Lucidity that we did in the summer last year for the past couple of summers, which was just a session IPA. And I was like, it's got to be a little bit like that, but it needs more bitterness. It needs more leanness. I don't want to make that again. And so through kind of taking the approaches from some of those beers, we started to develop an idea of how we would produce this beer. I had then gone online and cross-referenced a ton of information that I could find about different processes and different techniques to use different ingredients to extract different flavors from different things. Mm-hmm. It's the best way I can put it. And we had used that. The last Lupo Solitario we had done was Allura. And I was very fascinated with the potential of what this hop could do. And so we, for the first time ever, used our pilot system to do test batches for what I thought was going to become a staple beer in our portfolio. We'd never done a test batch for a beer ever in the history of Tooth and Nail. And yet I knew that if we were going to drop this beer and claim that this was going to be one of the beers that we were going to stick with forever, or not forever, but, as a staple in our portfolio, that we have to release it and it has to be good. So we did 3 different test batches. We did one test batch and we did another test batch with 2 very different ideas. And then we took them, both of the good parts of those test batches, and we actually blended those in a keg and tried them. And both beers were brewed with different processes. I said, well, what if we do this and what if we do this and combine those and then bring this third element in? And then we did that on a test batch, and the beer was fucking amazing. And so then this is that brew done on the big system. And in my zest for life, I decided to change one of the hops, and it didn't really quite work out the same way. And then when you're jumping from a 120 liter system to a 2,000 liter system, there are going to be some things that go astray. So anyways, we brewed it, and we were very happy with it, except it was lacking one little nuance, and that beer is now in the tank. I went back to the original hop, and the nuance is there. But we're extremely happy with it. super lean. The mouthfeel is really nice. The bitterness is so on point. It's drying. Nathan, you said grapefruit pith. Like I get that every time.
Totally. Yeah. The more when she said that, I was like, yeah, I'm getting that. It's so heavy.
Yeah.
I mean, this is an insanely drinkable beer with a ton of complexity to it.
It really is.
You get the passion fruit, you get the citrus, you get all of it. It's got amazing foam. It gives great lacing. It's got a really nice finish to it. It's low in alcohol. It's kind of like, we called it Exile because I was looking to, actually that's another story, but I was looking to make what to me would be a desert island beer. What would I drink all day long on a desert island? You know, I've got Saison DuPont, I've got Sierra Nevada, and I've got Jaeger Pilsner. And I was like, what am I going to do if I combine all those flavors into one beer? And so that's what you've got there. And so I was trying to, it's actually a funny story. I was trying to figure out the name for this beer because it's always like a whole other part of the process. And I was like, Desert Island beer. And I was like lying in bed with my 7-year-old son who's all curled up and snuggling, and we're having and I'm just talking to him. I'm like, I don't know what to name this beer, man. And he's like, what does it taste like, Dad? And I'm like, well, it tastes like this and this and this. And he's like, I think I brought up the name earlier in the day or whatever. He's like, I think it should be called Exile.
Oh, that's like, dope.
Boom.
There you go.
A 7-year-old. He's a savant.
7-year-old. And now he's super cocky. He's like, I named Dad.
He should.
Hey, that's pretty cool for a 7-year-old. I would be stoked.
Yeah.
His poor sister, she's like, okay, I got a good name for a beer.
Yeah. you got to let her do it now. It's only fair. I want to ask what the hops were in this one in the end, just so I can mark it down for the review.
So this is a Laura, Citra, and Azaka.
Okay. This is, the more I drink it, the more, like, I loved it from the beginning, but I'm just like, everything you described it, that desert island beer, which was funny because I don't know if you remember, but the original podcast we had like a lightning round, and that was one of the the first questions: what's your desert island beer?
Oh
like,
shit! I hope I answered them correctly today.
You know,
they're probably the same. Probably the same three.
Almost everybody said.
Oh, I think Orval would have been in there.
I wouldn't be surprised for you specifically.
You probably threw Sierra Nevada in there too.
It kind of when you
Sierra Nevada would have been in there for sure.
That's honestly that was probably
DuPont and Sierra Nevada are always in.
They have to be. Yeah. I almost want to bring that lightning round back. Maybe we should talk about that, Nate, because it's kind of fun. When you just said that, I'm like, oh, it's a fun little thing to do at the end of the pod. But this was like, it's just glorious. This is just such a fantastic, crushable beer, and it's only been out for this week.
2 weeks.
2 weeks. What's the response been? I'm extra curious, particularly because it's an XPA that is a new style to Canada, and people probably aren't particularly familiar with it. So I am always curious to see like what the take of the average punter would be.
So since the day we released it, it's outsold Vim and Vigor and everything else.
Whoa!
Wow. So this is about to be a thing.
So when we did the pilot batch, I started planning the schedule for brewing this beer to brew it much more than anything else, because the second we tasted it, we were like, this thing's going to take off. Yeah.
If this works here in Canada, and if you make this a thing, I think this is like just shows that the Aussies are onto something with this style then, because I feel like this is such a wonderful version and the truest the truest one that I've had in Canada to the few that I've had in Australia.
So insane. You know what? I have to interrupt you because the Aussie part I knew nothing about. And I think that anybody who knows me knows how passionate and enthusiastic I am about following Firestone Walker Brewery in California.
Yes.
Like they're just like I pursue the quality of their beer every day of my life. And they released XPA.
I saw that
probably about 1 or 2 weeks after we did our first pilot batch. And I sent Connor the Instagram video of this beer, and I go, this is what I'm talking about. This is what we're going for. And then he read about it, and we looked it up, and we went through all the stuff that Firestone Walker was doing. And I was like, this is like, since January, this is the thing. And he was like, yeah, I think I get it now. And that's when I found out that they had based that on the Aussie XPA.
What style did you call Exile before you knew it was an XPA? This pale ale?
We called it Extra Pale Ale because I didn't know what to call it.
So you came up with that not knowing that it existed already.
So I came up with Extra Pale Ale probably about 3 or 4 weeks before I saw the Firestone video.
And the Firestone was the first time you had been given any context.
XPA. Like I'd heard XPA like 10 years ago. Like someone's called it an Extra Pale Ale before then, but not as a style of beer. And so I was like, what are we going to call this? And I was like, I don't know. It's like, I want it to be an extra pale ale, like extra pale, extra hops, extra everything. So like, that was a coincidence.
Interesting. Dude, that's even cooler to me, to be honest, that like you did it. I thought from what you were saying that you'd seen the Hot Firestone Walker. You're like, that's what it is, extra pale. Let's call it that. But you already had the name.
It was the concept of the beer. I never called it an XPA. So
right,
like
just extra pale.
The month before I saw the XPA thing, it was just like, well, we'll call it an extra pale ale.
Right, but it's known colloquially as an XPA, I guess, essentially.
Right, I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah, which is. Dude, that's just so cool. That's just extra cool. Extra cool to causes. Extra cool to me
because it's super fun. It's
fuck yeah, bro.
It's a concept, right?
Yeah. Happy as obviously, you know, I got into beer here, but properly here, and though it's just nice to see that something there, and it made its way here. I think some people like even when I did the collab and suggested it. It was intentionally, and then it's organically from your side, whereas you've gone and just sort of ended up coming up with something independently, not knowing that it existed and not knowing what it tasted like. And this is uncanny how much it's like something from back home. So well done, brother.
Oh, great. Thank you.
And I think it speaks volumes to the style that it's popular. And once again, what I was saying before was like, I always sort of, typically Canada's behind the States and even Australia's behind Canada, and it was interesting to go back there because it was kind of like exciting. It felt like Canada 5 to 7 years ago. Like you go back and you're like, oh, everything's okay, it's fine, like it's cool. And then I go back the next year. Obviously, I haven't been back since before COVID because it's expensive as fuck and like it's way too far. I could not be bothered. If I could drive there, I'd go, but no,
sure,
it's way too far. But like. Every time I went back, it was like the beer was better. The beer was better. A year later, beer's better. I'm like, fuck, this is sick. And I just had some friends from Australia in last week. They brought me some Aussie beers, and it's like I feel like it's cool just to keep getting a bit of a what's the word? Like a bit of a touch point on what's going on out there. This to me is something that's exciting to me, and mostly because people like it, and the fact that you're going to even brew it more than Vim, which is speaking volumes about the popularity for it. And if it's only been out 2 weeks, where it goes,
but yeah, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully it makes some noise and keeps it going, because it's just like, I don't know, in a beer scene there isn't often something new, and this is the closest thing to something pretty new, even though it's not maybe what like a beer nerd would fucking dive into, because it's not extreme in any way, but it's so drinkable. It's sort of, it plays a fantastic role for that drinkability side, which I guess is really what you guys are all about.
For sure. Yeah, it's inspired a little bit by some of the newer Belgian beers that are being produced, lower alcohol beers with, well, not newer, but newer to some people, lower alcohol beers with lots of hop character, XX Bitter, Terrace Bulba by Delessen. Like, it's inspired by some of those to give that bitter hit that's got tons of flavor, tons of dryness, tons of complexity and in the hop side of things, while remaining, great in the mouthfeel. Just offers a lot.
Yeah, it's super dope. Speaking of that, the Belgian thing, one thing that Nate, I think we neglected to bring up with Bim was your collaborative, I guess, like side project together. Yes.
That was awesome.
Yeah. Tell us about that, brother.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So that was an entire nonsense project, if you want to call COVID nonsense. Yeah. So Bim and I, we were pretty close, and then for whatever reason, COVID, just the way that our lives intersected, became very, very close friends. And we had always wanted to make a beer together, but it didn't make sense to us to like make a Pilsner. right? Like it didn't make sense to make something we were already doing. And we are both very, very passionate about Belgian beer. And I don't remember where the conversation started. I think the conversation started in a COVID trip in my van, my Tooth and Nails van, on the way to Milos's brew pub in London. And that's exactly where it happened. It was between Toronto and London. And we were talking about, well, what kind of beer are we going to do? What kind of beer are we going to do? And we're like, what kind of beer would nobody ever expect us to do? And we were like, Belgian quadruple. Right. So then that was, I think, October, November of that year. That would have been 2020, maybe. And we got back and then we started, deliberating about what we were going to do. And then he came here and we brewed a quad in December. And by about mid-January, I called him up and I said, this isn't the quad that we want to make. And he was like, what do you mean? And I was like, because I think people expect more from us. This a little flabby on this side. It's not quite right on this side. And he said, okay, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I want to brew the same beer again, but I want us to make the improvements that we know how to make. So he came here again. We brewed a second beer. And then months later, we decided that we were going to take the two beers and blend them to be exactly what we wanted. And I remember we were sitting in our bar and we were doing blind tastings with some of the staff where they were handing us these beers and Bim and I were trying these 10% quads, just, whatever. And it was between us and some of the staff members that decided on the final blend. And then we packaged the quad. And then I said, well, this is stupid. Why don't we do a triple and a double and a single? And he was like, okay, well, fuck, we're doing nothing else right now, so let's do that. And then we came up with the idea of starting like this virtual kind of brewery and releasing them all at one time under this other moniker. And it was one of the greatest experiences of my life, I think, to be able to create this thing that didn't exist, to be able to put out what I consider to be 4 excellent beers at one time, and to be able to educate people on the flavors of Belgian beer under this moniker that had its own media page and it had its own, labels and creative side of it. It was awesome. Like,
That's so
I don't do a lot of collaborations, but if you can do a collaboration with somebody that's meaningful, it's amazing. So
That's great, man. And so it was just a one-time thing with like the 4-pack, like you said, the single, double, triple quad.
yeah, then we released so because we blended the quad, we had a bunch left over and we aged that in rum barrels and released a number 5, which was, I don't know, 13 or 12% alcohol or something.
Hell yeah.
In big 750 ml bottles. And I'm holding on to maybe 10 cases of those to age for a future release. But we talk about it all the time. Well, I don't talk to him as much as I used to because he lives in Japan.
Yes, we.
But did you guys do a podcast at like 7 in the morning?
It was
yeah,
all the way around.
I think. Well, I think it was 9 in the morning for him. Is when we were recording. He was a trooper.
Yeah.
He drank 6 beers in 3 hours at 9 a.m.
Oh yes,
And I'm
my
like,
buddy.
you are a fucking gangster.
He probably had a good nap that afternoon.
Yeah, I hope so. And
He probably didn't. He probably got on a plane and went somewhere. Or who knows?
Yeah, you're probably right. Actually, you're probably right.
He was at task. But yeah, so that was great, and I got to that. To be able to do something special like that with someone who's that special to me was pretty awesome. So I miss him, and every time we talk about doing another Abbé de 7 Minutes beer. But it gets more and more complicated as time goes on. But we just have to commit to it and get it done. I do not think that the brand is dead.
Okay, good to hear. Are they all cleaned out? Like they're all done?
I've got maybe one keg of double and one keg of quadruple left.
Cans are out.
We just cans are long gone. I've got about, like I said, maybe 120 bottles of the number 5.
Yeah. That's dope. That's fun, man.
Yeah.
It's like I don't think I'd really. I don't know about you, Nate, but I don't think I'd ever heard of a collaboration like that before, where it's essentially creating a new brand for a style that neither of you guys have particularly drilled down on in any sort of major sense, and then put it out together in this way, like multiple things. It was just very creative, and
certainly not at that scale. I don't think I've ever heard of that before.
No, it was like a good, of the years of nonsense. One of the positives that something cool like that could happen, because if normal life was just to keep going, you probably would never have sort of stopped and paused and thought about doing something like that. So I think that's
I don't think so. No,
Yeah.
I think you're right. Yeah,
there was some beauty in the fuckery. Beauty in the fuckery,
There's always beauty in the fuckery. You just gotta find it.
You just gotta find it.
Just gotta find it.
Oh, I love it. I'm just sort of conscious of time. Should we just keep pushing through these?
Yeah, we should keep pushing through.
Well, look, they're all finishing. This is like one sip to guys.
I've only got one glass, so I don't get.
I had a feeling that you had been one glassing it.
Because you are.
Well, I just ran in from my son's baseball game, so I wasn't exactly on top of those.
Hey, don't even.
I was on top of the time. I just went to the wrong site.
No, that's okay. That was my fault. Whenever you go into send to Google invite, it automatically adds the Google Meet link when you put an email in, and I would say 9 times out of 10 I forget to exit out. That was all.
Okay.
So should we see what
I'm
the
gonna do a
say?
drum roll.
Oh, boo! That's a lot.
Oh, nope, that's not it.
We're gonna move that to the last, right?
Okay, that's gonna go last. Red.
Yeah, that's the one.
There we go. I actually didn't know what
This
we
is
were
the
looking
one. This one Cee's been dreading all night.
You know what, Matt? Not anymore.
Come on.
No, you know what?
I was gonna send you nothing but Belgian.
I'm a different man than I was before, Matty.
Aren't we all?
Well, all these
Of
years
all
nonsense. I appreciate this in a way that I didn't before, if I'm honest.
No, but honestly, like, I jest, but I mean that sincerely. Like, look, we all go through our craft beer. I don't even like using the word craft anymore. Our beer trajectory, right?
Yes.
You drink your dad's shitty lager and someone hands you a Sierra Nevada and you're like, wow, that's bitter. I don't know if I like that. And then you have a couple more and you're like, I do like that. And then you need something hoppier. So you move to whatever it is, an IPA, and then you double IPA, and then a barrel-aged double IPA, and then a barley wine, and then, a barrel-aged barley wine. Then, wow, you can make sour beers out of barrels too. So you have barrel-aged sour, and then you got kettle sour. And so now you've done your hops and your barrels and your sours, and then you're like, okay, what's next? And then all of a sudden you're back at drinkable beers that you really like.
Yes.
Nuanced, simple, drinkable beers.
Yes.
Not everybody loves Belgian, but I think they do. It's just got to be introduced to them in the right way.
Yeah,
I agree. I've had a few experiences of late. There's a brewery in Florida that I've had in the pod a couple times, and they only do Belgian stuff. So I've had them on, and that's been really eye-opening for me. And I went there when we were down there. And also, there's a brewery here called Barrel Heart.
Mark's beers are great.
And they just opened down, down, well, not down the street, but it's like 20 minutes away. So I've been there a bunch since he's opened, and Mark is, I've known him for a while. And
Mark's the best
fellow, such a G, such a good guy. And his stuff, I'm just like, every time I go there intentionally, because I know that if I like going there forces me to drink stuff that in my own environment, I would probably be less inclined to do. So I go there, and I've taken my mother-in-law there, and she loved it. And it's just such point being, I'm exploring it a lot more, and I'm appreciating it at a level, just like with the Crispies too, though. Like you, man, Matty, and we're out here, so I'm looking forward to.
I mean, you started with the biggest flavored beers ever, right? Like when you got into beer and you were doing hazies and the big
No, I
stuff,
got
like
into beer in 2011 here, and I was drinking macro. Then I went to European lagers, and then I went to amber. Amber was my first ever favorite style. It was just when we met, I had gone through the Belgian. All I drank was Belgians for years. Moved to Montreal in 2012. I was drinking Unibrew. I had a Depanneur in my building. It was like $3 for 750s of fucking,
Yeah,
more
that's
deep and
just,
stuff.
and I went through a similar thing. It's like those are kind of the first like biggest, boldest flavors that you've ever had in beer.
Yeah.
When you kind of get in that step of the pattern.
But when we met, exactly right. So I was used to that punch in the face and I loved it. And then by the time you and I met, I was balls deep in haze territory, trying to get something that wasn't available in Canada. And that was my latest thing because I'd already done everything else. And I sort of lost the appreciation. And now coming back, I've got this new appreciation for the Crispies, which is still probably, if I'm going to go out, I want to go to a place that preferably has a Luca and a bunch of different, Dunkel and a dark lager and amber lager and stuff like that. But now I'm quite interested in because I'm like, well, look, I turned around with the Crispies and now that's my shit. So why can't this be something else I'm a bit more passionate about now too, with this maybe newfound appreciation of stuff. So with that, cheers to Valor, boys. Get that in you.
Cheers.
Great nose. Really like estery, but no banana, which is the one thing that kind of like doesn't work. See? Okay. I think the last time even we did the pod, I think we had this on the pod last too in 2021.
Potentially.
No, 2021. It was the all stout. It was the all stout thing.
That was the fucking St. Patrick's Day, March.
Yeah.
God, that was fun. That was such a good one. God, that was good.
Was that with Noah?
Yeah,
it was with Noah. It was supposed to be with me, but I fucked up my back and I was all hopped up on painkillers, so Noah stepped in for me.
I felt
that stout night and painkillers would have been pretty fun.
That would have been pretty good, to be honest. Dangerous, but fun. Yeah, that was phenomenal, by the way. Obviously, that's something we're going to get to later, and your stouts are like A1 world-class shit as well. This, to me, right now, this is fucking fantastic.
Yeah,
the
really
carb
nice.
is glorious. All the things that, like it's saying here, like, true farmhouse ales are dry, spicy, fruity, and hoppy. That's exactly what I'm getting right now. I'm not getting the elements that I don't particularly enjoy, which are those sort of banana, overly estery, overly phenolic kind of things, like the cloves and all that. This is just really subtle, smooth. It's definitely got that Belgian sharp, heavy carb, which is on style.
Sounds like it.
Yeah, I'm trying to talk. Excuse me. It's got a bit of the pepperiness. Looks like the rye as well, so you're getting some of that peppery, grassy kind of thing going on. Extraordinarily balanced and smooth. I feel like, and refined. I feel like this is easily the most I've enjoyed this beer, and I really think it just comes down to being ready to love it. And I wasn't always ready, and other times that you and I, when did we drunk it together then? Aside from the first pod, it doesn't. I feel like we had.
Is this our third or fourth?
I thought it was third.
I'm pretty sure it's your third. I'm pretty sure it's your third.
Yeah,
I'm not sure. I know that I've had this beer with you before, but
same. I feel like
you.
And with both of you though, because then you both could have had the expectation that I wasn't going to like it, so it's going to kind of eat at me until we figure it out.
Well, this is my first pod with Nate.
Yes,
okay,
that's right.
Either way, then maybe whatever it was.
Well, I've had this beer lots of times, and I've definitely bought this one for you at least a couple of times, Craig. So
maybe it could have been that, and I posted it or something, and you commented, Matt, or something like that, or messaged me afterwards or whatever, and giving me shit if I didn't like cream over it or whatever, which is fair, completely fair. I'm never mad at that. But no, this is exactly what it should be. I'd love to hear from you, man. Like, what was you're calling it a classic saison. Yeah, I imagine this is DuPont inspired, based on what you're saying before.
Inspired, yeah. So, this beer is. So I would start by talking about Belgian beer in general and saying that Belgian beer is a difficult undertaking in many ways, because in North America we are not accustomed to tasting these flavors, in,
True.
what is called a beer. I think that if anyone's interested or curious about Belgian beer, the best way to enjoy it is to try it with some food.
Okay.
These beers pair with food like you wouldn't believe. And Saison in particular will pair with just about, well, not just about anything, but so many different foods, just about any cheese. You can have this with a steak. You can have it with seafood. You can, and so when you're talking about it, this is a farmhouse based beer historically. What do they make on the farm? Eat that with this beer. It's going to work out. There's a lot of theories. I don't know if anything's been proven, but that the yeasts that produce these types of beers come from the Burgundy region of France. And that's where they produce Pinot Noir. And if you have a French Pinot Noir, it's really known for being quite fruity and quite earthy. And that's exactly what you get in a beer like this. So it's really hard to discount that theory. If you take a French Burgundy yeast that either travels, through the air or somebody transports it physically to a farmhouse in Belgium where they're brewing a beer for the lay workers with whatever grains they have on hand and whatever hops they can get down the road, this is what you end up with. Now, Saisons used to be brewed back in the day to refresh the farm workers. So they were of much lower alcohol content, maybe, between 2.5% and 4%. DuPont became the real benchmark at 6%. And so when I brewed this beer, I was looking for that kind of body and that kind of flavor profile, but I've never so Exile is the only other beer at Tooth and Nail that I've spent as much time working on in my head than I have Valor.
Gotcha.
So Valor, I spent a month at least, and I was very inspired by the book Farmhouse Ales, where Yvan de Batz from de la Seine in Belgium wrote a whole essay on what he believed true Saison to be. And I read that, and then I read it again, and then I read it again, and then I read it again. And I cross-referenced everything he was saying with all these things. And we brewed Valor that, it was released, I think, March or April of the first year we were open. And it won a gold at the Canadian Brewing Awards.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, so that's pretty good. Like, I think I did well with that one. And it tasted the way I wanted. And so since then, we've just been trying to hone it in and refine it and make it what it is that we are looking for. And I think it is really the definition of what a classic Saison should taste like. And Saison is a really, really undefined style. So it can be anything from a farmhouse. It can have Brett. It can have sourness. It can have all these things. And it all falls under Saison because it's a farmhouse ale. But to me, Saison has a very particular flavor. And it's the flavor of the yeast with multiple grains that come from a farm. Maybe some older hops. We have, we don't generally brew this beer with fresh hops. We use some stuff with some grit. We try to give this beer some rusticity. We try to give it a little bit of that real, like, I'm sitting here drinking on a farm in Belgium by some Joe in coveralls that just finished baling hay who brewed it, 4 weeks ago. That's the flavor I want in this glass.
That's awesome.
I like that a lot. Yes, I remember reading when I learned about Saisons back in the day, and in the theme song Brewheads in this thing, I put it in the song, like, about this was the beer for the people who were harvesting the stuff and keeping people. And it's obviously, like you said, definitely lower ABV, being that it was not supposed to get them drunk, was supposed to quench the thirst. But this is all of those things, and you're right. When you were saying that, like, picture it with food, and like, you're making me hungry when you were like with the cheese or with the steak or seafood. I was like, fuck yeah, that's amazing. It sort of got this like nice sweetness to it that's balanced by that sort of pepperiness from the it's got the rye as well, and the hops, I guess. When you say are you using aged hops in this? Is that what you meant?
We don't use the freshest hops. I'll put
Gotcha.
it that way.
Intentionally, of course. Okay, gotcha. Which is they're delivering these flavors that are complemented, that work well with the funk in these type
Yeah,
of.
it gives a little bit more of a coarse palate.
Gotcha. Yeah. I feel like
And I want that to. So this is brewed with rye, oats, wheat, and barley. And so I find that the coarseness of the not so fresh hops can often work well with some of those grains, like the rye especially, and kind of help to give it a texture and a profile that expresses itself in a very rustic flavor.
Yeah.
I don't really know how to describe this, so that's the best I can do.
I love the word rustic for this. I feel like it's accurate.
Yeah, I think so. And and it's also got with all of those complexities that you've just mentioned, and kind of the different layers of flavor, and then the finish is just so dry. In a similar way as you were kind of describing Vim earlier, in one of those cases of and especially with all of that complexity, that when you again finish with that kind of level of dryness that is just begging for another sip, to kind of really get into the depths of those of those complexities again. It's wild. This is it's been a little while since the last time I've tasted this, and this is feeling like a whole new adventure for me.
Yeah.
This is a beer that's dear to my heart, and I know, Nate, you've had the Vim and Valor before.
I see that was on my that was on my list to ask you about.
I haven't. Nate, you used that. It was the bottle one. I think, Nate, you had it for New Year's Eve one time.
Yeah, so Matt, tell us about Vim and Valor, because I remember the initial release was in 500 ml bottles, but the couple but since then it's been out more around New Year's in the big fucking magnums.
Yeah, so there's no plan for that right now, but hopefully I can come up with one. So Vim and Valor started from me just going behind the taps, and they're my two favorite beers that we make. And I was like, they've got so many similarities not in flavor, but in concept and in vision, that I was like, well, what are they going to taste like together? And so I started measuring them out and different things and pouring them. And I got to a point where I really just fell in love with this particular blend. And I was like, this is literally these two parts coming together and making a better beer. And so the first time we did it in the 500 milliliter bottles, there were some mistakes that were made in terms of not really foreseeing how the Saison yeast was going to eat the fuck out of all the residual sugar left in the Pilsner. And so the beer became carbonated to the point where it almost became unpourable. And I still have bottles of it at our warehouse. And I'm every day, I'm just like, am I going to walk in and just find these things just blown across the ceiling? But I feel at this point that years later, they're stable enough. But if you rip the cap off one and then put it in a glass, it's pretty lively. And so for those magnums, we dialed back the Vim and Vigor and had more Saison in it.
Gotcha.
And that worked out well. And actually, I think it was last Christmas, I poured some of the last magnums for a guest that had held a party in the back of the brewery. And I was like, man, this used to taste like it was going downhill, and then it just came back to life. And it was so great. And I know that we're going to do it again. I just don't know when. And we're thinking about other things right now, but I would hope to be able to do some for Christmas this year. So Valor, we used to brew about once a year, and we're going to start brewing it about 3 times a year now. we've received some really amazing accolades for this beer, and it would seem crazy not to always have it around.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Gotcha.
You're talking about food pairings there, like with Valor, with Vim and Valor, like with you releasing those magnums around around Christmas for a couple of the last few years. Well, when you have had it out, like the couple of years that it was released, I got it and had it on New Year's, and my wife likes to make a charcuterie board on on New Year's, and Vim and Valor with some of those cheeses there is absolute perfection. Absolute perfection.
Either Vim and Valor or Valor alone, either of them with just a charcuterie board.
Yeah.
Like you want to have one drink that's going to go with all that stuff. It's any, Saison.
Yeah.
Like that's the beer for a charcuterie board. That's the beer for a huge spread. You're gonna find, and every cheese you taste and every meat you taste and everything, it's gonna change the flavor of the beer. You're gonna notice all these different things that you'd never got before. So it's perfect.
Yeah, you can go on a whole adventure with that. It's it's really an experience.
Yeah.
Well, if you think about it, your cured meats, your cured, forced meats and pâtés and cheeses and like pickled vegetables, it's all farm food.
Yeah.
Right?
And there's
it ties it all together.
It really does. And there's not a lot of beers that can go with that kind of range. Of foods, because when you've got some things that are salty and and some things that kind of have this fat that needs to be cut through, you can't necessarily mess with all of those. There are some great combinations you can have there. Like one of my favorite pairings is like imperial stout and a sharp cheddar that there is fucking money. I wouldn't necessarily want that with some of the meats on the same board. But
right.
but a saison could do beautifully with both of those.
For sure. For sure.
I wonder if there's something to this. Just got me thinking. So the Vim and Valor, mixing a pilsner with a saison. Our friends in LA, Crowns and Hops, they did a collab with Allagash where they blended their pilsner with Allagash's triple.
Oh, I saw that.
Yeah, I've got cans of it. I haven't actually cracked it yet because I'm not particularly.
Jesus, guy.
I know, and I got him
on this.
Forget
about your day job.
Yeah, let's go. Fuck. Sorry, buddy. My dog is here and he heard me clap. But I was like, oh, I wonder if is it a thing? Therefore, I don't know why I never connected that before. But is it like a thing to blend pilsners or lagers with Belgian beer? Is that
I mean, I don't think it's a thing, but I think there's a lot of sense to it in so let's take your beer for example, Pilsner mixed with a triple.
Mm-hmm.
Well, a triple is a very big bodied beer that has some perceived sweetness even though it's dry. It's got some hoppiness, and you take a Pilsner that is super lean and hoppy, so your hop components are going to blend very well no matter what.
Yes.
Your malt components are going to blend very well. So essentially, if you brew a proper triple, it's essentially the same recipe as a Pilsner with more malt and more hops using a different yeast. Right? So there's certainly some compatibility to make that work. For sure.
Interesting.
I've often thought about the Valor recipe. Hey, why don't we try doing that just with a lager yeast to make a lager out of that? To put a blanket statement over lagers and Belgian beers might be a little bit out of the box, but to put a statement between some Belgian beers and some lagers, I don't think that's out of the box, because there's a lot of the similar approaches to brewing those beers. The strengths are different, obviously. But ingredient wise, there's probably a ton of similarities, even right down to where the hops come from, and then using different yeasts to extract different flavors into a beer like this versus something else. There could be something there for sure.
It's interesting. I never even thought about it until tonight. the fact that you've been doing it for a few years, and then those guys did, I think, for the first time last year. I was like, I didn't even connect it. And now you're mentioning that there are a lot of similarities. It kind of makes sense. And there's something like cool about the blending of two beers to create a new product, which is kind of what you just explained earlier with Exile.
I love blending beer.
Yeah.
I love blending beer. Like, honestly, well, there's not much to speak about. I just think that there's so many opportunities. Like when back for the first 5 years, we used to do anniversary beers that were partially barrel aged and soured, and then we would blend beers that we made from that year into that beer to create something a little bit bigger. And that was a really, really fun thing to do. And right up to the point where we had a staff member, Shelby, she used to ask if we could somehow put together this graph or chart. This came from this year and this came from this year into this beer. But the one thing we did is every year we did it right up till year 5. And that was the last year we did it. We put a little bit of year 4 into year 5. We put a little bit of year 3 into year 4. We put a little bit of year 2 into year 3.
That's
cool.
To sit around and play around with these flavors, and it takes about a day. And you certainly, you're not driving home at the end of something like that. But the discussions are amazing, and the things that you discover are so unbelievable to add to your, Rolodex of what you got in your head about your craft. And so I love going behind the bar, and, I don't really make swamp water, but I'll go behind the bar and be like, I wonder if a little bit of this added to a little bit of this will work. And I try it all the time. That's where Vim and Valor started.
interesting.
That's where Fornication started. Fornication is fortified or imperial stout with coffee and chocolate and Fortitude. So Fortified and Fortitude got together and fornicated to make Fornication. And Fornication might be the best stout we've ever made, but we don't get to do it as often as we would like.
Right.
But those kinds of ideas to me are like, that's where you've got a couple of different products, and it's like, well, these products people really like. What if we somehow mash them together somehow and make something better than what they are on their own? That's really awesome.
Yeah, dude, that's so sick. I love that. Thank you for talking about the blended stuff, because I feel like that's a something that we didn't really touch on much here. How do you guys feel about a quick bathroom break? Because I have a pause button, and then we can pause up.
Feel great.
I figured we'd probably
about having a bathroom break.
It's about time.
And we'll be back in a sec, yo. Boom. All right.
We're back.
And it is time, Matthew, for some IPAs.
Perfect.
I'm ready. Nope, not that one. It is this one. This is a gem of a beer. Nate has got me this beer a few times recently, and I love it. Another fun fact that probably you don't assume with us, Matty. And I also should show. Let's see what the cards say. Let's see if the cards are saying it. Oh, they are. Look at the cards.
There it is.
The cards are delivering.
I don't know exactly what the card says, but I remember enjoying what I wrote about it, because I thought it was a great description of what this beer actually is.
You know what? We probably should have been reading it the whole time.
If you don't mind, if you read that one, I do think it describes the idea of this beer.
Brewed with a nod to the West Coast with a subtle dash of New England flavor, Rabble Rouser is a unique IPA that delivers a well-balanced hop attack with flavors of peach, mango, and pine. Dangerously drinkable with a firm but pleasantly bitter finish. I love it. One thing, Matt, that you probably don't realize, Nate and I are aficionados of the West Coast IPA. We are fiends for the pine.
Indeed.
Oh, good.
We would copulate with a fir tree, with a cedar tree, with some spruce, if requested.
Okay, I request.
I did not expect that. I don't have an answer.
Oh man, he took you right up on that.
You know what? You just threw it out there, and I just grabbed it.
Matty, You should be the new. We should have the three of us as the co-hosts.
I'd be happy to.
Oh, I love it. Tell us about this gorgeous beer, my man.
Yeah, so Rabble Rouser was one of the first beers we brewed.
Really? No shit.
I had so my brewing experience before. So my internship after school was at the Lost Abbey in San Diego.
San Diego, yeah.
And their sister company was Port Brewing, and they produced a number of IPAs.
Okay.
And so part of my schooling was in San Diego IPA, which is strong and bitter, very, very citrusy. And I remember when I came back from my internship, I brewed a homebrewed beer for a staff party at Beer Bistro, which is a restaurant in Toronto where Dana and I met. Yes. And I called it Beach Bum IPA.
Nice.
And it was really an awesome beer. And when I opened Tooth and Nail, I remember so many of my friends thought I was just going to be making IPAs.
Right.
And I didn't want to do that. I just wanted to make like one. And the first version of Rabble Rouser was in the tank, and Anthony from Bar Lupulus in Ottawa. I don't know if you guys know Anthony. He's an amazing.
We know Anthony.
Yeah.
Such an amazing
he's a
guy.
Gem. He's a gem.
I actually haven't seen him in months and months, but he's such an amazing guy, such an amazing restaurateur, and he's got such an amazing palate. And I remember him drinking this from the tank and going, it tastes like a Vermont IPA, but it's bitter and piney. And so that's kind of where the description came from. And it's an interesting beer because when I set out to make this beer the first time, I had an idea of the hops we were going to use, and they were all sold out. So we were in the middle of that hop crisis in 2015 where you couldn't really get anything that you wanted at that time. Mm-hmm. And I was working with my very close friend, Dan, who was selling me hops at the time. And Dan said, well, I've got these new hops, El Dorado and Azaka. Maybe you could try those. And I was like, well, I don't know. What do they taste like? And at that time I wanted Centennial, but I could get Cascade because Centennial was sold out for the whole year. So he's like, well, why don't you try Cascade and then these two? And so I started playing around with them. And to this day, now it's Centennial. Well, since 2016, I guess the year after that, Centennial, Azaka, and El Dorado. We dropped the El Dorado for a little bit in favor of Idaho 7 and then went back to El Dorado. But I don't drink a lot of IPAs, but this is the beer I drink the most right now. I really think that this is the exact beer that I want Tooth and Nail to put out as an IPA.
Yeah.
You can call it East Coast. You can call it. It's not East Coast. It's got some aromas that are similar. No. It's not East Coast, but it's its own thing. I think it's like all my beers, like they're their own thing. But I fucking love this beer, and I spent 6 or 7 years hating this beer while it was like the best seller in our pub. Like all of our regulars drink Rabble Rouser. All of our regulars. And I'm like, how do you drink 6 or 7 Rabble Rousers a night? Anyways, it's not my problem.
No, your problem. It's theirs. Guys, cheers. Get that in you.
Cheers. But I really, really do love it. Dana came back she went to New York City. She took her mother to New York City with her sister as a Mother's Day present and came back with a 12-pack of Two Hearted Ale from Bell's. Which I always that was up there. And I never ever thought of this beer as being like Two Hearted. It was never even in the never in my mind. But when I started drinking them, I'm like, shit, it tastes like Rabble Rouser.
Now you mention it.
There's a balance thing going on there that's similar. The flavors aren't exactly the same, but Anyways, I'm proud.
Not exactly the same, but like if you ever needed a beer to like to rep that Centennial is the fucking goat, like Two Hearted is the one.
Yeah, I buy a six-pack of
Centennial might be the goat.
I think it might.
That's such a large cold.
I mean, that's a tough one,
guys. You need to, I don't know. I think you might need to chill. Like, I love West Coast IPA, but Centennial being the goat, like, we have to talk about this.
Okay, so let me tell you this.
Sell me.
I'm gonna tell you something you don't know.
Oh,
so
all night, Matty.
When I went to brewing school, so I was in school in 2009. It was 2009, and at that time, John Mallet, who now is, well, I don't know what he's doing now. I assume he's still with BAOS, but he was the production manager of BAOS, but like one of the most fucking gifted, schooled, educated brewmasters in the world. Mm-hmm. He was doing a course on brewery floors. Right.
Oh, okay.
So it was all about how to make your brewery floors so that it's going to last you forever and whatever. And someone asked him a question about Two Hearted Ale. And Two Hearted Ale in 2009 accounted for 70% of the production of Centennial hops in the world.
Holy shit.
What the fuck? 70% in the world.
So and I might be misquoted. I might be misquoted because I haven't watched that lesson in years, but it was in and around 70% of the Centennial production of the world.
That is crazy.
That's bananas.
Yeah.
It's bananas.
So then, okay. So obviously, like, look, you're talking to the right people, and I'm willing to be convinced. Like, I feel like favorite hop, because the goat hop is similar to you guys might be out of this world, but like the goat wrapper conversation, like the goat is always like a thing you always talk about, and you got your own top 5. I know my top 5 is mine, but if I could look at it objectively, it would be different to my top 5. Because I understand that the people that I like the most are different to the people that are the best. And it's the same with hops, I imagine. Like right now, Peacherine is, my opinion, is my favorite hop. It's the best hop. You can't go wrong with it. But
that's incredible because I've never heard of it.
I haven't heard of Peacherine.
Peacherine is a haze hop.
It's a haze hop, but it's like I've heard of
Nectaron, but Peacherine, no.
Same shit. Nectaron and Peacherine are kind of like talked about.
If you talk to Bim, he'd be like,
what? I had funnily enough, when I went to Treehouse last August, I got their main lager called Trail, and I got the Peacherine version of it specifically.
They made a lager with Peacherine?
Yeah.
Holy shit. Okay, that's bold.
It was, I don't think it worked as well in the lager as it does in haze, but it was
I wouldn't think.
It was still great. So Peacherine is my favorite. Nate and I have
not much left to the imagination there, though.
No, it's basically
peaches and tangerines.
Essentially, you can't really go wrong at all. It's spectacular. But the goat is a different conversation than what's the hottest right now. If you ask me, and Nate and I both had the favorite hop. Funnily enough, we've been pretty parallel. Was Idaho 7, because you mentioned that before with this. That was our favorite hop for years.
And interestingly, I got to throw this in. My very first taste of Idaho 7 was Tooth and Nail Solo Mission. Idaho 7 was my very first taste of Idaho 7. Not a hazy beer. Like that was a Tooth and Nail Pale Ale, of course.
Which is fire. So I would be curious and very open to hearing the arguments as to why Centennial is the GOAT, because if I buy a 6-pack of Two Hearted every time I go to Buffalo, which is once a month, and I've been drinking Two Hearted like all the time now. It's become my like short can go to if I'm want a little break between the haze and whatever. It's perfect, and it's just easy, and I have to think about it, and it's great. And if I didn't actually even think about what hops in it, because I reviewed it when I had it the first time like 6-7 years ago, so I haven't thought about what's in it since. I just know I like it, and I think it's just, a fantastic thing. And as soon as you said that, I'm like, oh, I totally see that in Rabble Rouser.
It's 100% Centennial. And like I'm sure like Matt will have a lot more to say on this than I will, but like one thing that I can tell you is that most of my favorite West Coast IPAs these days, and like you know how much you and I like fucking jam on that.
Circle
So many of my favorites prominently feature Centennial
for Westies.
For West Coast and American IPAs.
Gotcha.
So like, and that's like that's one of the reasons I wanted Centennial to be prominently featured in like in Winter Walks, the collab that I did with with Saint Baron was exactly because of so many of those West Coast, like classic West Coast and American IPAs that feature it. It's just so fucking good. So that's why it's really, really up there for me right now.
So Matty, then with that context, if you have any particular thoughts as to why Centennial is the GOAT, I mean, it's starting to. I'm seeing the vision, is what I'm saying.
I mean, Centennial is it's so fucking versatile, and it makes a great base because, well, for me and lots of people, you know, pick up their own stuff, but for me, Centennial, you can get a little bit of dank, but it's very, very balanced. You get a lot of what I think are Fruit Loops cereals, some lemon, some orange, some lime, you know. You get all of that Fruit Loops thing going on. You get a little bit of zest, citrus zest. The bitterness is so clean that it builds in your mouth as a flavor as opposed to an aggression. I do think it's one of the greatest tops. As to how to describe why, I'm not entirely sure. But you can use it on its own. You can use it in all kinds of different beers, and it will come out in a different way in all of them. But if you're going to talk about West Coast IPAs, I wouldn't use it in New England because those are so defined by Citra, Mosaic, and Simcoe. Yeah. And then you can dash that with Eldorado, Azaka, fucking whatever the hell you want. But they're so defined by that flavor that Centennial doesn't really have a lot of business in there. But if you're going to do West Coast, if you're going to do pale ales, if you're going to do, you can throw it in. I remember a beer that I had, which was a Belgian wit beer. Fuck, where the hell was that? Dogfish Head, maybe? No. It was in Vermont, American Flatbread. Which is zero gravity.
Oh yeah.
I love that.
And it was a Centennial wit beer.
Shit.
And it was fucking spectacular. Like, I just think it's so versatile. I think that it's just got all of those great elements to it.
Centennial wheat IPA?
Could be. No, it was
I'm trying to find it.
No. It was, I mean, God, this would have been like 2006, 2007.
Oh, some they didn't make it no more. Well, I'm on
like, were you born, Craig?
I'm probably older than you. Have you seen my gray hairs?
You are not older than me.
Are we gonna play that game?
Sure.
I'm 43.
I'm 48.
Okay, fuck you in.
So we're done with that now.
We both watched Ninja Turtles when it came out, is what I'm saying.
We did. Yes.
Hey, I'm the youngin' here. I watched Ninja Turtles as a kid too.
Did you?
Not the same Ninja Turtles.
Probably not.
We
not.
saw the movie.
No, you're right. You're right. I watched it. Like I watched the cartoon on Saturday mornings.
My parents had a growing up, and they went to the toy fair in like 1988, and they got the toys before they came out because we were obsessed with Ninja Turtles. Because I told my dad when I was 6 to get a toy shop, and he listened to me, and he did. Shouts to Dad.
Amazing.
So Ninja Turtles, different. You probably were watching the same Ninja Turtles, but just probably a little later, Nate. It's okay. You're not a child. If it's probably the same. Like, I think we're like five years apart too. I think we're just like nice little like, boom. Matt's the older statesman here. There's one called a Centennial Wheat IPA. Oh, also known as Zero Gravity Conehead IPA. Okay, that's definitely not it then. You said it was the wheat beer, Matty, yeah?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
No, like a Conehead's like their flagship IPA.
Yeah, I think you're right. I'm just cruising through rate beer and it's got like all of the beer. There's like a trillion beers here. It's actually like annoying. There's so many. Like I'm talking, there's
All right,
probably
let's not start checking out Matt's
293. The 290. Okay.
Matt's facts might be off.
Well, you know what? I'm not checking. I'm not fact checking. I already closed the website. I closed it. We're off that. Anyway, you had Centennial in a wit beer, and it was fantastic.
Yeah, it was amazing.
At American Flatbread.
And I'm sure it was at American Flatbread. Yeah.
Gotcha. So it made an impact on you early on, and you were like, "This is something that's."
Yeah, I think Two Hearted was the real impact. Like,
yeah,
you know.
Really
that was the one for Centennial.
Huh. Okay.
It would be.
You know, Sierra Nevada in their Celebration Ale have Centennial, Cascade, and Chinook. Like Centennial was used all over. So, excuse me, when we started Rabble Rouser in 2015, Centennial was supposed to be the hop.
The primary.
But it was sold out.
Wow.
Couldn't get it.
What a time.
Hop shortage and all that shit. So it took me 2 years after that to get the Centennial.
Okay. It's almost like that feels like some crazy foreign time when Centennial wasn't available and it's hard to get. That's not the case now, I imagine, at all, right? Like,
no, it's not. But also keep in mind, I was this brand new brew pub with no contracts and no idea who to talk to about how to get anything. And there was a hop shortage going on, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Different times.
But, you know, I got to give Dan credit for being like, hey, he's like, have you tried this new hop El Dorado?
And then,
but have you tried this new hop Azaka? Right? And I was like, no, those sound crazy to me, but I'll give them a go. And now those hops are like, you know, massive.
Classic and legendary. Interesting. Yeah. This is such a fantastic beer, man. It's like everything that we're saying.
So fucking good.
A great sweetness. It's 6.8%, so it's ballsy, it's piney, grapefruit pith once again, which is what you would expect. It's definitely like tropical and fruity, like you're saying, New England, like a touch of New England in there, but predominantly West Coast as opposed to American, I would say. Which
I get less of the tropical, I get more of the stone fruit.
Yeah.
You know, stone fruit. Well, tropical, I guess, you know, I always call mango stone fruit, but I guess mango's tropical. But I get the mango and the
the lines are blurred.
I think you're right.
Yeah, for sure.
So blurred.
Every time I hear tropical, I think passion fruit, which is like Citra to me. And Citra to other brewers is not passion fruit. It's you know, other things. But every time I hear Citra, I think passion fruit, grapefruit, some big bright, you know, citrus. But anyways.
When I think passion fruit, like I almost more associate that with Galaxy, like something with kind of like the big punch like that.
Oh yeah, those things. Yeah, those hops are crazy. Galaxy's crazy.
Do you know what? Galaxy sucked all of the dick for quite some time, and Troy from Badlands was telling us that Galaxy's back in business for
Yeah, he's saying like the last 2 years he was saying Galaxy's been popping. But anyways, that's a
different convo.
That's a convo for a different podcast.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I mean, for me, Galaxy. I mean, Galaxy is, you know.
It's its own beast.
Of a hop. It's.
I think it dipped in quality. I think like objectively, not even just for like haze people or anything like that. Like Galaxy was the tits back in 2018, 2019.
Sure.
In it, maybe 17 as well. And this something kind of went with the, like you were saying earlier, Matty, about like Vim had, this sort of like roller coaster thing. I believe that, a lot of hops probably have the same as grapes, the earth, climate, all these different things, impact.
Oh, they do for sure.
So I think
that's the hard part as a brewer, right? Like you're dealing, like the hops are your grapes.
Of course.
Every year, somebody gives you something that's different. You got to figure out how to make the same beer with something that's totally the opposite of what you've been doing for the last however many years.
Yeah, totally. So it's very interesting to always hear the different sort of takes on it all. But either way, this beer is such a I don't know, it's fantastic. It's just such a great
Got
one.
my buddy here, Paul.
Hey, Paul.
Wants to
Hey,
say
Paul.
hi.
Shout out, Paul. What's going on, man?
Paul.
I probably can't hear us because your headphones on.
He can't hear you. He can't hear you.
Get it in you, Paul. Tell him he's a champion.
What's going on?
You're my boy, Blue.
Matty's on his 5th can.
So are you.
Are we taking our shirts off or what, bro? Are we doing a 2017?
I don't feel like that story is even accurate.
I would swear.
Look,
Where it happened.
he's not pulling that out from here. He's been telling that story since since that happened.
Thank you, Nate.
No, I remember this vividly, and you can trust my memory on this.
Your memory, you are like my brother Brad always remembers things from our childhood and gets mad at me because I forget. And Nate is my other brother that remembers things about beer things, and particularly podcasts that I don't remember. When I said you didn't take your shirt off, you lifted it up.
Oh, that's possible.
Yeah. Sorry. I really should have qualified that because I feel like that was unfair on you. And I'm not saying that in a bad way. I'm like, this guy's a vibe. I like this fucking guy here. He might not make hazy beers.
No.
We'd have to censor those nips.
You would have to censor.
No, we wouldn't censor. We let it. We free the nipple here on BOS. Hashtag free the nipple.
Yeah.
You know the fucking vibes.
Hashtag free the nipple.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah, right. What were we talking about?
Yeah.
Nipples, Matt taking his shirt off. West Coast IPAs. I don't even know at this point. It's I'm loving this fucking beer. This is so good, bro.
Oh,
this is
so good.
This is fantastic.
Well, I'm happy to hear that, and I mean that sincerely because Rabble Rouser has always been a insecure beer for me. It's the only beer that I've ever made that I felt insecure about.
Why is that?
Because there were many years where I didn't really think it was as good as it could be.
Okay.
And I know that I'm past that now.
Good.
But in the height of hazy IPAs and things that tasted like, Five Alive and no, I'm not saying that to be disrespectful.
I understand. That's not a bad thing at all.
Just those things, like people found Rabble, untapped beer geeks would come in and find Rabble Rouser to taste bland. And I didn't believe that about that beer. And it was our number 1 selling beer for the first 3 years that we were here, and it's now our number 2 selling beer, like in the pub. And it's tough to sell it to bar owners because they're full of IPAs. And they're like, well, I haven't really tasted that one, but like whatever. And I think it's a fucking great beer.
Damn right it is.
And I really believe that it's a really great beer. And so now I'm developing more confidence around this beer because we've made all the different tweaks and all the different changes to the point where I think it's an excellent IPA. But to put out a beer like this in the midst of what the hell was going on with IPAs can create some insecurities about, your flagship IPA.
I can see that.
It's more just like it was a different, like when it was coming, 2015, it was a different time where there was this.
It was a bad time.
It was a bad time for a beer like this, but what's
Yeah.
interesting? I feel like there's a Westy renaissance and it's small right now, but it's bubbling. A year or so ago, when was it, Nate? We did the West Coast episode, 2022 maybe.
Yeah, it would have been 2022.
See, we should have had this in it, but we are both aficionados of West Coast, and I think it's to do. We were saying earlier, Matty, that like you do the color wheel and you do the Belgians and you do all that stuff, and then you come back around to Crispies, and we're loving that. Westies was something else that Nate and I are passionate about. There's basically nary a drinking session that either of us would have where we wouldn't have a West Coast IPA. And they're not always the easiest things to come across. And there's something about Westies where the reliable beer is, there's not like this search for the new as much as the reliable, hence drinking Two Hearted, hence drinking Rabble Rouser. Whenever Nate goes to Tooth and Nail, I'm like, if the Rabble Rouser's there, I'm like, get me a bunch of them every single time, because it's just like, it's such a fantastic, you know, it breaks things up in the cycle. If you're drinking a crispy and you're having a pale ale and you're having a haze and you have a Westie, then you have a double IPA, whatever it is that you're doing. And I feel like it's, you know, I even see that the hype breweries doing more Westies now, here and there, not as often as we would like.
I've seen that for a little while. Yeah.
I
don't think some of them are doing them very well.
That's fair, and not all of them hit the spot. Definitely not. But I think that they want to do more, but it's like they know that their audience doesn't particularly want them, so they can't necessarily, you know, maybe validate why they would want to do that.
Fair.
Which is, it is what it is. But I feel like it's like this, like you said earlier about the sort of like the cycles, it comes back around again. And Westies are, it's such an interesting thing where they're like, you know, we've been punched in the face with pastry stouts that taste like birthday cake and fucking all these different tropical fruits on the haze, which I'm not mad at. I drink all of that shit all the time. But then you just kind of want something that's going to switch it up, and the Westies switch it up, and it's also it harkens back to 2011 for me, trying Mad Tom and, like, you know, the Flying Monkey stuff, and
like early days of Headstock.
It's Stone from the States, Sierra Nevada, all these different things in these early days of drinking beer, and you're like, those were the shit. You were looking for the, you know, the IBUs to tear your tongue a new layer off. And now it's like coming back, and they're more refined, and they're delicate, and they're different. You know, they're piney, and they're grapefruit, and they're stone fruit, and they're kind of stewed mango, and they're these, you know, beautiful malt profile and herbal and grassy. And I'm like, this is different to everything else I'm drinking, and therefore it stands out more. Yeah. And it's
so. I would say to you that they probably haven't changed.
No, they probably haven't, but I think our palates appreciate.
But your palate has,
yeah.
Our palates have changed, but the appreciation for the style is new because we haven't really focused on them. We hadn't focused on them for a number of years. So when we brought them back a few years ago, I don't really remember how it kind of went. I feel like if a Westie came up, I would never like turn it down, but I wouldn't seek it out. And then now I feel like if I see a brewery that I like drop a Westie, I'm grabbing it. Like, I'm proactively grabbing it. Nate's proactively.
Yeah, because they're fucking awesome.
Man.
That's why.
And they're few and far between.
They're few and far between. And you know, like the hazy New England style, there are versions of that style that will blow your fucking mind.
Yes.
The rest of them taste the same as the rest of them.
Yep.
And
that's true.
I find that the rest of them that taste the same as the rest of them lack a degree of drinkability to the point where by the time I'm at a bar and I finish that glass and I'm like, I finish it because I'm not going to not finish it, I'm ordering something else.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
The West Coast IPAs have got a degree of balance, bitterness, dryness, fruitiness, bigness that you can drink and drink a second one and drink a third one and then go home and wonder why the fuck you're, you know, kind of drunk at that point. You know, Craig, you brought up Stone IPA.
Yes, sir.
And I'm like, Jesus Christ, man, if there's an IPA that's been produced in the world that can define West Coast
probably
on a big scale, like that thing is a beast.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And you can buy a 6-pack of that and take it to a barbecue.
Yes.
And have it with, you know, ribs and your friends, and we could share these things, and all, like, you drink it the same way you drink a Pilsner. There's a very, very big difference between West Coast and the rest. And I'm not talking East Coast. I'm saying West Coast IPAs, like the IPAs that were intended to be piney and citrusy and bitter, and you know, the way they're fermented, they're dry. And then there's the rest.
Yeah.
And
that also has me hearkening.
That's my feeling on that.
That also has me hearkening back to Sculpin from like 7 or 8 years ago.
Sculpin is unreal. I don't know what it tastes like these days.
I don't either. The last time I had it was probably 5-6 years ago.
Yeah, it's been forever.
So the last day of my internship at the Lost Abbey in San Diego, there was a party for somebody, and I didn't know who they were. And the party had ordered a keg of Sculpin and a keg of Nelson from Alpine Beer Company that was then bought by Green Flash.
Yes.
Probably the first beer in North America that used a Nelson Sauvin hop as the sole hop in an IPA. Had some rye in it. It was one of the best IPAs I've ever tasted in my life.
Hell yes.
And we had Nelson and Sculpin on tap for that party, and I was just an intern. I was like, my job is done here today. I'm drinking. And fucking Sculpin, man. Like, these are serious IPAs. These are the reason that we're all coming back to the originals, the reason that we're all coming back to the world classics is because they're classics. They're not going to fail us. Right? They're built to last. And they will suffer during some of the trends, and they will, like, go to the LCBO. There's tons of world classics on the shelves. There's tons of shit on the shelves too, but there's tons of world classics on the shelves. And you can go and buy these beers for pennies on the dollar, and they're amazing.
Yeah.
They're amazing. I wish I could charge that much for a beer, but I can't.
Yeah.
Anyways.
I wanted to say, if you ever question my love for West Coast IPA, this is my dog's toy.
Oh, God damn it. Does that have a cap on it? Oh. No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
That's not even a bottle. God damn it. With my resolution, I thought you were taunting me.
Oh. I actually wait, hey, where is it? I've got one right here. Where is it? There it is. There's fucking a real one. Oh, that's yes, guy. Yeah, you know the fucking vibes. You know this the fucking vibes.
Do you know what you do with the Pliny? You know what the best thing to do with the Pliny the Elder is?
Is drink it.
Take the cap off.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I one of them. All these ones just falling. Oh, this is another one we got recently, Matty. That's actually pretty fire. Is the Pliny for President.
Oh boy, yeah. Is that still closed? Because that's a crime.
No, come on now.
Okay, perfect.
This is the beer shelf. Nothing here is closed. Oh, actually, there is a collab that's closed, but nothing else is closed. Everything's broken. I'm gonna put it over here.
Anything that ever comes my way is so funny because people drop off beer and stuff like that.
I can imagine you.
Any prized possession like that, people are like, "Oh, I brought you some beer," and I just go.
It's warm, and you're like, I don't give a fuck.
We've got it now.
It's literally off the plane.
I do not wait. Do not wait. Fresh beer.
Speaking of not waiting,
fucking beer. Fortitude.
I think it's time.
Oh, I like that. Matty's already cracking it. Matty hasn't even paused.
Just had it right there.
He's just like, fuck it. This is what's going down. Don't question me. Don't look at me sideways. These are the vibes. Oof. All right. So, the last episode, as Nate poignantly pointed out earlier, was a St. Patrick's Day extravaganza back in 2021, where we did a nice lineup of 4 stouts ranging in different ABVs, leading up to, I can't remember what the biggest one. What would have been the biggest one we did?
Well, the biggest one was probably Fortissimo.
Well, it could have been Fortissimo, but I'm not sure.
I don't think it was.
No.
Fortissimo has been a little while. I'm pretty sure the biggest one of that was Fortissimo.
You know what?
I think I still have. I might have a couple of Fortissimos.
We did. Is that
And
the
I'm
one?
sure,
in the
and I'm
bottle?
sure
Nate,
Noah.
you should.
I'm sure Noah
Nate,
probably still does.
Yeah, I'm sure he does.
I had some recently, and I drank one. I drank a 2021 bottle, like not that long ago, like really recently. So I feel like when Nate went past the brewery, you had some still available there, and I was like, grab me that bottle, and it was part of the one that but we had all cans.
Yeah, no. See,
It was
it
a
wasn't.
4-pack of cans,
It
right?
wasn't Fortissimo. I've never had Fortissimo.
Oh, that was the COVID 4-pack.
Yeah,
the COVID
it
4-pack.
was.
Yeah,
It was
we
the
did
COVID 4-pack.
Fortitude, Fornication, Fortified, and Fortissimo
That's the one.
cans.
That's what it was. That's what it
He was
was.
like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I don't know. I'm trying to sell some beer."
And it was amazing because it was March and it was all fucking phenomenal stouts. And yeah, but then recently it was I think it was Fortissimo, not Fortissimo.
Yes,
it was.
it was.
It was the 2021. It was like a coffee stout, if I'm not mistaken. And it was a goddamn banger. This is Fortitude. Yes, I've had this one a bunch. This one's fucking phenomenal. This is just such a great beer. Such a like one of the things that I've found on top of West Coast IPAs that I really enjoy is low ABV stouts, and this is what 5.4. It's perfect. I feel like every drinking session again, just like having a West Coast, I feel like having a low ABV stout that's just flavorful and
like just a straight up no adjunct oatmeal stout can like really, really hit.
Oh, I couldn't say anymore. Guys, please get that in you.
Cheers.
It's so chocolatey. Yeah, even this Baker's dark Baker's chocolate, French roast coffee, and oat milk chocolate chip cookies. Jesus Christ.
The oatmeal we're gonna let Matty talk about this in a second, but like the oatmeal chocolate chip cookies is a note that has stuck with me since my very first taste of Fortitude.
Wow. That is so accurate.
No, I swear to
accurate.
God, I swear to God, that's something that's stuck with me since my very first taste of it.
Not surprised.
Yeah, that's just a wild one, and and we're having it in the cans right now, and it's fucking delicious. But I had it just on Saturday, just this past Saturday, back at the pub when it's on Nitro, and they're on Nitro is just.
The Nitro's a whole different.
It's utter perfection.
Is it something I just want to ask, even from the beginning? Is this something that could ever be canned from somebody who does not live in Ottawa? Is that possible?
Like canned on Nitro?
Yeah.
I mean, it's possible. It's extremely. I don't want to say challenging. There's a lot of logistics that go into that we're not capable of fulfilling.
Gotcha.
So basically, yes, can it be done? Yes, it can be done. Are you going to have to pay like $10 a can? Yes, you're going to have to pay $10 a can.
Worth it.
And so at some point, so we've always had a goal to be able to can this on Nitro.
Gotcha.
But the availability to do it is just not there yet.
Understood.
The machine we would have to purchase is like $30,000 or $20,000 or somewhere in between. To be able to bring a company in to do it, we can do that.
Mm-hmm.
There are plenty of people who want to do that. We would have to do a larger tank of it than we're capable of putting out, and then the nitrogen. Anyways, it's basically, if you want to talk about economies of scale, we can do it.
Understood.
Once we get to that point, we can. I hope we can do it, but not right now.
Gotcha.
Well, as lovely as that would be, it needs to be said. Even in in a straight up normal carved can, it is sensational. It's really, really good.
It's got to be one of my favorite low ABV stouts, period. I feel like I've had this a bunch of times, and I'm like, every time I'm like, I'm a huge fan as well, Matty, of the short cans. I really love your format. I love short cans personally because
I
just feel
especially
like-
love them for pods.
love them for pods because we can crush 6 and not blink.
Me too.
It's the yeah, you too, yeah, for sure. And
But
it's
you
like,
know,
go on,
sorry, go ahead. I cut
No,
you
no.
off.
No. I was just gonna say I just prefer it. I like
Yeah.
the shorter cans because I can drink more volume and they therefore have more differentiation in my drinking. So personally, that's a favorite for me. Who's someone who like I can drink 6 tall cans, but I would kind of prefer to drink more of, of a touch less, so that the variety can be a little more and like
Yeah, I mean that's always been our approach. I mean, we started with short cans, 9 years ago. People questioned the decision. To me, it's like I don't know. I don't remember. I think it was Muskoka. And they were putting out Mad Toms in short cans and double Mad Toms in tall cans.
Huh.
And I was like,
this doesn't make sense.
So,
Like
what
that's
the fuck?
like that seems
Like,
the
this is-
reverse of what.
And I don't want to call Muskoka out on that, but like I think
that's
that's
Muskoka.
what was going on.
Right.
And I was like, what the fuck is that all about? Like, anyways.
And now they even got a couple in the stovepipe cans as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I like. That's fun too.
It
in
is.
a different way. It's like a different type of fun. I
don't
feel
know.
like
I like the short cans.
same.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do too.
That being said, we might. Go ahead.
Sorry, Matt. Go ahead.
We might. We're looking at the possibility of putting Vim and Vigor in a tall can, just
I can see
because
I could see that.
there are LCBOs that we've gone to in Ottawa that will not accept short cans.
Yep.
Oh.
So it feels like, sales left on the table.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll see. I don't know. Never say never.
Yep.
Yeah, it's the format is such an interesting thing because I guess there's the retailer and then the consumer and everyone like I like the idea of sort of having the choice. Like you mentioned the stovepipes. Like I just looking, I got Lawson's Sip of Sunshine like a few weeks ago in a stovepipe, which I'd never had before. And I was like, this is cool because I haven't had Sip of Sunshine in forever. But would I always want an 8% double Vermont IPA in a stovepipe? Yeah, not always. But one time, shit was fun. I feel like personally I like the shorties. But I mean, I guess offering it in various format sizes I understand the appeal because, your drinking style might not appeal to thousands of other consumers' drinking style. So, I guess giving people.
I think people are conditioned.
Break it down.
Well, people are conditioned, right? Like what they see is what they want. So if you go to an LCBO and you walk into the beer cooler, which I'm grateful that they have coolers now.
It's very cool.
But you walk in there and it's just like all 16-ounce cans. That becomes like how beer is delivered.
It's your expectation.
Right? And so then you go to a place like mine where you got to buy beer out of this 60 square foot store and you're like, well, why the fuck are they doing this in these stupid little cans? That becomes a little bit of a constraint to sale for us.
Gotcha.
I care and I don't. I still believe that what we're doing is what we want to do. But at some point you have to pay attention to what people are buying. I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've seen the whole gamut of opinions, and it's sort of like, just like I would probably say like the easiest way to look at it is like, well, just like with the styles of beer and the beer that like, what does that brewery want to put it in? Then that's what the fuck it is. It's just like, if you want to make this style and this way, and you want to put it in this size product, can, bottle, whatever it is, cool. That's what it is. I just feel like that's the best way because it's more authentic to that brewery, and that's how they want you to try it. So that's how I'm going to try it. And maybe I would prefer small cans, but maybe if fucking 13% stouts are in 750s, well, so be it. Not my favorite, but it is what it is. And you shut up and you deal with it, and it's okay.
Well, I mean, you shut up and you deal with it and it's okay. But like, if it makes you more likely to buy it, if it's in a smaller format, that's also not nothing.
But it would also be the volume of people. We're talking about 3 people. So like if, you and I, Nate, have talked, in private about, like there's various people we see online who have different opinions about stuff. Like if I'm going to have a 10+% stout, I'd like 8 ounces of it. But there's nobody who does that.
No,
So,
but I don't know that. I don't know that that's true, though. I mean, like, don't take everything that you hear on Instagram to
individuals. I mean, like individuals, for example, people that, hey, this should be like this, this should be like this, and then breweries have told us, well, we want to make this size, but people want this size. Like, and it could be all sorts of variety. Maybe the brewery wants to make small, but people want big, or vice versa. The brewery wants to make big, but people want small, and it's like.
And what the LCBO wants to to sell is a whole other thing. Like a pretty comparable, I think, example is is Anderson Craft Ales, and they produce on a pretty large scale, but they are also a similar brewery that primarily distributes in short cans.
Yes,
that's right. And even the ones that they do in some LCBOs have been in 6-packs of short cans, but very, very recently, and this is a new development of theirs, similar to what you're considering there, Matty, is that their Anderson IPA in LCBOs in tall cans, which is the first time they've ever done that.
So can I ask you a question? Are they selling 6-packs at the LCBO?
I don't. They were selling 6-packs of short cans at the at the LCBO.
That's what I want to do. So we're looking at, anyways.
I like that.
No, we're looking at doing a tall can size, but I would prefer to sell a 6-pack over a unit.
Yeah,
and we haven't even gotten to the whole idea of what we're trying to do as a brewery, but I do believe that things are going to revert back to what used to fucking work, which is a brewery making the 5 or 6 brands that they're known for, that you can buy in a 6-pack or 2 for. I don't know. I don't know that the untapped coming into every brewery and tasting every brand new thing that they've ever brewed is gonna work out long term. And we've seen breweries close en masse. We've seen this industry change en masse. And so now I'm looking at it going, well, I don't really want to put my beer in a tall can. But the LCBO wants it in a tall can. Right. But I don't really want to do that. So are they willing to take a 6-pack of Vim and Vigor in a fucking sick box with some wicked illustrations and branding on it, right? That makes me excited. Putting in a tall can, I'll do it. And we might. And hopefully that package looks good, but it doesn't excite me.
Yeah.
It excites me that hopefully we can continue to keep this business going. But
which is the key part.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's the key part.
It's would you guys mind? I gotta piss like a bitch. Do you guys want to keep going, or do you want to all pause and go to the bathroom?
Well, it's either we try to wrap. It's either we try to wrap it in a minute. Yeah.
I really got to go right now.
Okay. So let's pause and then let's come back.
I'll just chat with Nate the whole
time. I could leave it live if you want. That's what I'm saying. I could leave it live if you guys are good, but if not, I'll pause it and then we'll go.
Leave it live.
Leave it live?
Just leave it roll.
Yeah.
All right. I'll be back.
Go ahead.
I'll be back in 30 seconds. All right. Behave yourselves, guys.
We'll be okay.
Oh, we'll be fine. That's interesting. So, yeah, I want to believe that that they would take a 6-pack of Vim and Vigor. I'm kind of thinking back. I haven't seen Anderson 6-packs in an LCBO in quite some time. And
I haven't seen a 6-pack in the LCBO period in a long time.
Yeah, and it's particularly out here in Ottawa, and I know they may have had a bit of a bit of a unique thing, because I know they had a specific like Ottawa salesman at one point who like had a relationship with local LCBOs and was convincing them to buy 6-packs of of their seasonals and whatnot that I would see pretty regularly in a handful of Ottawa LCBOs, and it was like a very specific thing that he was getting into those stores specifically. So probably not like the province-wide network of of warehouse distro and whatnot.
Right.
But like, so I don't know that like if they would go for a 6-pack of Vim, but man, that would be like that would be cool if that would be something they could go for.
Well, I think that they're going to be stuck in a little bit of an imposition going forward, because as of September 4th, corner stores and gas stations are going to be able to sell beer.
Yep.
Corner stores and gas stations are not going to want to sell individual beers.
Nope.
Right? They might have a couple in their fridge along with their Red Bulls and their Monsters, but they want to sell packs.
Yes.
And so I think that the packs are going to come back.
Yep.
And if I think about the way that the distribution is going to going forward, you know, we are getting designs done for 16-ounce cans of Vim and Vigor, but it doesn't mean I have to use them.
Right.
Gotcha.
Right. And so we will have that at our disposal if we need to and want to. But I think with this new opening up of corner stores and gas stations, I honestly think that putting our beers, and not just Vim and Vigor, but a couple of others, Rabble, Rouser, Vim and Vigor, Rabble, Rouser, and Fortitude would be the ones I would put in a 6-pack with a nice like image on the side and just promote those to those independent retailers.
Yeah.
You know, we've done a lot of work to figure out what the fuck we're doing around here. And I think that our main focus as brewers is to make Vim and Vigor, Rabble, Rouser, Fortitude, Exile, Grace and Gratitude, and Valor. Each one of those, like, spend all the time it takes to make them world-class products. And the one-offs, they can come and go. We're going to do those in our pilot system. Probably starting in about mid-July. It'll be like Sucker Punch will be the first one. Tenacity will be the second one. And it's like, you want to have Sucker Punch, you got to come to the brew pub this week, because we have 4 kegs, and when they're gone, they're gone. And I will. And then the next week, Tenacity. You want to come for Tenacity? Try this. You want to have Birds of Prey? You want to have Sparrowhawk? So we'll have a rotating seasonal or rotating special in the brew pub. And the rest of these things, I think they can go into little 6-packs, because it's all going to open up. Yeah. Sorry, Cee. You walked into a combo.
I know. It came right back in.
Yeah. And you know what? Like, it sounds like you might be onto something, and you're not the first one who has said that. When we were talking to Aiden from Henderson, he was also talking about how he thinks kind of like the combo pack might be the way of the future with the with the opening up of the corner store market.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. I saw that Willowbowl would just drop like a 12er of their Hellas Lager as well. So I was like, okay, more and more. You know, I know that Hendo and Bench did the combo, which what you were talking about, Nate, in LCBO. But then, Pete, like all of your brands, Matt, like everything we drank tonight, which is everything you just mentioned, like these.
Oh man, this in a like in a combo 6-pack would be fucking money.
I couldn't even. I was actually
That's the goal.
I was even gonna say this them all, 6 graces of gratitude, 6 Vims, or whatever. But like these 6 in a pack, fucking insane. Like,
Yeah.
what value and
As
what
kind of like a pack that says like what is tooth and nail, like this is everything.
it really is. And like, if
Yeah.
that's the future, I don't know. I'm not mad at that. I think that's really cool. And that's a cool way to explore a brewery in short cans. There's nothing that's too much of a commitment. That's why I like short cans, because say if you're new and you're like, oh, I like this branding. This is really cool. These like, the graphics are dope. I want to learn about this brewery. Everything is in a short can. So maybe you might have a preference and maybe you don't know what a Saison is, or you don't know what a oatmeal stout is, or whatever. You can try this and you'd be like, oh, cool. But it's not like a 16 ounce, which sometimes might be a little more difficult to finish. Whereas like these are all shorties, so they're very crushable and approachable, whilst teaching people about the brewery. And then that would encourage people to either make an online order or to come in and pick up everything they want.
That's the fucking goal.
I can see
You
it.
know, and if we put a 12 pack like that together and drop in a little envelope like I gave you guys, that's another education. Like I would like the one thing that is really important to me is that we continue to educate people on what we're doing, because I think part of how this industry is kind of like, tough word to say, but lapsed a little bit, is we got a little bit comfortable.
That's a fair point.
We stopped educating the consumer on what it is that we're doing. We're like, the consumer's coming in and they're ticking everything off on Untapped and we're all good and everyone's making money. Well, yeah, for how long?
Yeah, for how long? And it was like the boom came at a time when like everybody was,
flush.
Yeah, I guess flush is a great word. Everything was
like
happening.
It's not that doesn't even refer to money. That's just flush.
Flush, period.
Flush, like
across the board.
Your fucking mood, your money, your fucking rent, your mortgage, everyone was flush.
Everything was good.
Everything was good.
Craft was on the rise. Then the COVID happened. Then people had nowhere to be and disposable income. I can't say words. If you drink the 6-pack of Tooth and Nail, you have a bit trouble speaking. But goddamn, it's fun. And people like maybe spending money in different places, and then that wasn't sustainable. So then we're back where we are, and we're probably back in that education phase where we need to educate different communities to let people know that hey, beer exists, and this is a thing where everybody's welcome, and it can pair, like, kind of coming back to what you said earlier with Valor, like not only can Valor be a wonderful food pairing, but every single beer tonight could be paired with various different food.
For sure.
Various cuisines from different cultures. And that's part of the message that we need to get across. It was that you can drink any of this with some jerk chicken, with some fucking Nigerian suya, or like whatever. Like there's so many different things that it works with it. We're going to let people know about, and maybe these sample packs are more exciting. We're going to encourage people to come into breweries like Tooth and Nail to try Fortitude on Nitro that I see every time you post it on social, and I'm sitting there like, God fucking damn, why are you 6 hours from me, or whatever it is.
I think the important thing to recognize is everything you just said is easy to grasp within a certain framework. And I think that the idea of one-offs and what's new and what's exciting is going to start to fucking wane. Because it keeps everybody excited. But the everybody is shrinking all the time. So for us, like, the 6 beers I gave you were for a reason. Those are the beers that we're working with for the foreseeable future. And we're going to bring 2 or 3 seasonals in, 4 times a year, and work with those, like Discretion and Fog Ducker and Victory Parade and You know, our brewer Connor made an amazing brown ale that's going to be seasonal next year, and Truce, and these things that people have come to love from this brewery. But to be able to consolidate down to these brands and then have a program where I'm like, this beer goes with this works with this, you can eat this and whatever. To have like 70 fucking beers in a year and explain to people how that works with food and how this works with your, you know, the way that you live, and tall cans and short cans, and we've got this label and whatever. It's honestly, it's just like just throwing shit at a wall. It's too much. And I think that now that craft beer is seeing a little bit of a reckoning, and it's not crazy, you know, like we're all feeling it, but it's going to be around forever.
Right.
To be able to focus on a few things and make things work, I think is really important.
I never thought of it like that. Is that if you're trying to encourage new people to come into craft beer by showing them, hey, here's this beer. Oh, you'll never be able to get it again. Here's this beer. Like, that's probably not the way to do it.
Yeah.
Like,
we've done that for so many years, and so many people are like, can I get this? And I was like, no, we only ever did that one time.
And that's a cultural thing, and I get it, but I don't think that's going like, and it's cool for
that can be, but that can be a turnoff. It can
absolutely.
really be a turnoff.
When I say cultural,
yeah,
I mean craft beer nerd cultural. Like,
yeah.
Once you're used to it, you're like, cool, bro, whatever. But when it comes to inviting new people in, that's going to be foreign. It's almost like you got to position it like wine, whereas like, here's our Pinot, here's our Chardonnay, blah, blah, blah. And that's probably where the flagship and the reemergence of the flagship is coming in. And I would argue that over the last, was it 2024, maybe 12 to 24 months, we're seeing more and more of that, where breweries are doubling down on flagships, where beer drinkers that we know that are beer nerds don't want to roll the dice on the new beer every week. They would prefer to put their money down on something that they can rely on, just like
For sure.
wine drinkers have forever. They're like, this is the 2024 Pinot or 2023, whatever it is, and they're like, this is what this, boom, okay, sweet, I know it's going to last for this long. But even beer is better than wine in that Grace and Gratitude is going to be essentially, give or take, basically the same forever, as long as you can
It's
get
not fucking cheap to drink our beer.
It's not cheap,
You
but
know,
it's a superior
it's not
experience.
cheap, but it is an affordable luxury. 100%.
I like that.
But it's not cheap. You can go buy world classics at the LCBO, the things that inspired me to make beer, for a lot cheaper. But I do believe still people still want to drink fresh beer
local.
that comes from the place. Well, local, but fresh and good quality.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like anything coming from Europe is fucking 3 or 4 months old before you get to at its freshest.
Right.
You can come to Tooth and Nail and grab a Vim Vigor. It's no more than 2 weeks old. Like,
it could be that
fresh
day.
beer it's worth paying for.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you know, we struggle with you know, all these things.
People want to support local, and they want to support. That's what we've learned sort of more recently, that we've just like, we know that like the person who runs the fish shop and the butcher and all the cafes, there's like half a dozen cafes we go to regularly. I know them all.
It's the best way to shop.
And like, it makes us feel amazing, because if I'm going to put my money somewhere, I want it to go to you. I want it to go to Fairweather. I want it to go to Merit. I want it to go to these breweries, these local establishments that are what makes the community what it is. And it's almost like the local is coming back, and like, cool, they can buy Pilsner or Cal, but like you said, it's 3, 4, or 5 months old. But I can get Vim and Vigor, which is so spectacular. And it's an affordable luxury. It's not that crazy, because if you're going to spend $2.25 on some fucking macro garbage, I actually don't know what it costs, but like,
Depends whether it's garbage or not.
Well, true, but old style Pilsner or one of those fucking Bud or blah blah blah, whatever. You could spend all of that on like a tiny amount on that, but you're not going to have the same experiences you're going to have with a fresh Vim Vigor. And it's
you're reminding me of my mother right now, who was a staunch supporter. She bought meat from the butcher.
Mhm.
She bought vegetables from the market. She bought cheese from the dairy. Like my mother was, she just shopped that way.
That's how she got down.
I was brought up that way. So you're preaching
to the choir right there. And look, we rock like that in Quebec, but here in Hamilton, we've had to find it and seek it out, and we've found it. We've been here almost 2 years, and we've really found our places. We've got our cafe, we've got all the different places, and we feel fantastic about it. And we did the thing in May. This is May. Well, it's just clocked over to May 31st right now. We've boycotted Loblaws all month, and we only went to Fortino's. We didn't go to any Loblaws. There's not really any around, but we stopped going to, and we've got only local places, and it was fucking fine. So some things are a touch more expensive, but we feel better putting that money into local businesses and keeping them thriving and making the community what it is than to put it into these multinational, multi-billion-dollar, corporations that don't do shit for us, that they don't help anybody. So
of course,
I would hope, but I guess the challenge is that like people might not see craft beer as this thing that's worth paying extra for. I've been having an argument. I don't know if this dude will probably watch. Some do. I've been having this argument with this dude, which ended up positive on the BAOS YouTube comments. And he said, craft beer is over. It's a fad, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, nice one, dickhead. You fucking come in here trolling here. Like, why are you watching the craft beer channel and doing this? And then he's like, I only drink English ales. And I'm like, I fucking bet you that the English ales that you drink are craft beer. And then he was like, hey man, I'm cool. I fuck with your channel. Everything's cool. Like, I like your shit. Tell me what to get. I'm like, where are you? He said New Jersey. And like, boom, I Googled and found some stuff and gave him all the answers. I'm like, go fucking find this. And I bet you still the British stuff that you drink, even from England, is still craft beer. And because he's like, it's hoppy, it's piney, it's blah, blah. I'm like, IPAs aren't craft. It's so much. So there's like a disconnect with some people. And it was an older guy who came across Trolley. Maybe he wasn't in the end, but it worked out a positive engagement. But there's still people who don't understand. And part of, I guess, your job as a brewery and maybe our job as the people who talk to breweries and talk about this stuff is to educate people to, but hey, man, like there is a little more than meets the eye. You do have to understand that this is not the same thing as a PBR. For like sure. Grace and Gratitude is so much more than that. And when you drink that, it's impacting the local community. You're hiring, you're making sure people have jobs, and you're drinking something that's so much fresher than it could ever be, and blah, blah, blah. So it's, we have a journey ahead, but like you were saying, I imagine that you feel incredibly optimistic because these products are so superior to anything else that it's like
I think I'm equally as optimistic. I think we have to position ourselves a little bit differently, and I think that the education to the consumer is paramount.
Yeah,
and that's it. Like we don't need to peddle our wares in a way that we're superior. We just have to peddle our wares in a way where it's like, hey, you can get fresh beer here. You can taste it the way that it was meant to taste. And you can support a family and a few other families by buying our beer. And, Tooth and Nail has always been considered to be a neighborhood brew pub, a neighborhood brewery. You guys got something you want to support in the neighborhood? Yeah, we're happy to help. It doesn't need to be much more than that. That's it. And if we can produce world-class beer that gets accolades internationally, then hopefully more fucking people come to this neighborhood and hang out, you know.
And they should.
And
And
they
they
should.
should.
Yeah.
What a great way to bring this home. That's awesome. Matty, this has been an honor and a pleasure, man. Like I said,
Absolutely.
Nate and I are such big fans of you as a human being, but also as you having the water, smart man.
Yeah.
I'm having some fortitude in this bitch, but
I finished all the beers.
of course you did.
Then I get into the bourbon. So.
Ooh, I like that. That's some serious. That's
Matty
some
goes
real,
hard. Matty goes hard.
Huh? That shirt's coming off. I'm telling you, it was wake up. But dude, honestly, thank you so much for taking the time to hang out and to, you know, I'm glad that Nate finally got to be a part of the pod as well. And like,
Oh my
Yeah,
god.
me too. Jesus.
it's beautiful, and it's, I don't know. I feel like in 2021, the shit was great, and I loved your stuff, and I loved your stuff back in 2017. But I feel like there's a different level of it now, and I know this is. I appreciate you dearly. I think you are a gem. You are a treasure to Ontario craft beer, both you as a human being and the brewery itself. It's so important what you're doing. It's so impactful. I don't think it would be fucked if you didn't exist, is what I'm saying. It's just so dope that you're around doing this shit in the way that you are. And I don't imagine I'm circle jerking or boosting in any shape or form. I really feel like I'm speaking for the people.
You're not boosting at all. And I've got to say,
Or circle what?
Circle jerking. It's when you sort of like all stand around and we all just you're sitting there in the middle. You go, and me and Nate are like,
yeah. No, but I've got to say, guys. as an Ottawa local, we are so fucking lucky to have y'all here, and I've appreciated you so much, from the very beginning, and to hang with you tonight and enjoy these fantastic beers with you has been an absolute honor and pleasure. And I really hope that this can be packaged in a 6-pack that can be enjoyed more broadly sometime soon. Because it's a sin to for anyone to not have had the pleasure for this.
Awesome.
Dude, this is amazing. We'll wrap it up. Stick around afterwards, because the way this software works, you have to upload the video and the audio from your side. I should have told you beforehand. It doesn't take long. It takes like 30 seconds, but
I need instructions.
Yeah. Just don't press go. Don't press buy yet. So while we wrap up, Matthew, where can everybody find Tooth and Nail online and in real life?
At 3 Irving Avenue in Ottawa, Hintonburg.
Gang.
And toothandnailbeer.com.
What a place. It's glorious. Matty, thank you once again for hanging out and for chatting about this. This is it's just so fantastic. I appreciate you dearly. Guys, thank you so much for watching and listening. If you enjoy,
I love hanging out with you guys.
Let's do it every year. Yeah, let's do it every year, and maybe we could even come up with something else. I just feel like you're just such a I feel like we could have a little side thing where we could do some stuff together.
Yeah, we got to not leave it 3 years next time.
No, that's obscene and embarrassing and ridiculous. Guys, thank you for I can't even talk. 6 beers deep. Thank you so
your
much
shit
for
together,
watching.
man.
I'm trying my best. I'm trying. It's the Rabble Rouser. Thank you so much for watching and listening. If you guys enjoyed the episode, smash the thumbs up, hit subscribe below, hit that notification bell, Nathaniel.
Ding.
So you know when the new episode drops. Look, Matty's telling you. Follow us everywhere at BAOS Podcast. Follow Tooth and Nail. Is at Tooth and Nail? Is it at Tooth Nail?
Toothandnailbeer.com.
Toothandnailbeer.com on social.
Toothandnailbeer.com. I'm not sure.
Nate,
I think it's Tooth and Nail Beer on Instagram. I'm not 100% sure.
I have a feeling it is too.
This guy knows.
He knows. He knows. See that attractive face? He fucking knows. I didn't even remember. I don't know.
At Nathan Does Beer as well.
There you go. At Nathan Does Beer, at BOS Podcast, at Tooth and Nail Beer. I don't know.
Follow this guy.
Follow
this guy.
Follow him.
Oh,
Wait.
you're too kind.
That way. that way. That's Matty. If you see Matt, give us a hug and say, "Hey, Nate and Craig said to give him a hug."
This guy right here.
Give him a hug.
You see everybody give him a hug.
Everyone's hugging everybody. We'll see you guys in the next one, yo. Peace, guys.
Cheers.
Bye.